7:31 on February 8th, Thursday of 2024, bringing this meeting of the Pacific Grove Unified School District to order. Before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Custodian, and Esalen people, and additionally pay respect to elders both past and present. Let's move on first to the roll call. Can we get a roll call vote?
We absolutely can. President Brian Swanson,
Present.
Dr. Elliot Hazen,
Here.
Trustee Jennifer McNary,
Here.
Trustee Laura Otmar,
I'm here.
and Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Here.
Great. T for terrific. We've got everybody here. Let's move on to adoption of agenda. Fellow board members, are there any issues of concern as they relate to the agenda?
None for me. I do see an updated agenda with us at the dais. If we could just go over if there are any changes before we adopt the agenda. I'm not sure. In our blue folder, there was an agenda. Would that be the same one that we received in our?
I believe
In
it's
our
exactly the
packets
same.
and
It's
online?
just a hard copy, so you. will have it
Perfect.
corrected.
Thank you.
If
Then
there's
nothing from
any
me.
changes.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you for just calling our attention to that. Is there any public comment on the agenda as it is presented? See nothing online, Louis, thank you, and nobody raising their hand in the room. So knowing that, can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
Also move.
I'll second.
All right, I see a motion from trustee Hazen, a second from trustee Otmar. Can we all approve, because we do not need to roll call since, right? So all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone objecting? Right, passes unanimously. And now we will move on to closed session. I'll identify the closed session topics. First off is negotiations, collective bargaining session with PGTA for 23-24. Secondly, negotiations, collective bargaining with CSEA for 23-24. Third item on that agenda would be public employee discipline dismissal release complaint with government code 54957. And fourthly, if that's a word, or number 4, superintendent goals review. Are there any public comments on closed session topics? I see nothing online. Anyone in the room? Anyone? No. So moving on. And with that, we are going to adjourn to closed session. On to written communications. I have a short summary. I expect there are others. I received one email from a citizen relating to ABM Solutions, another expressing concerns between field trip opportunities between Forest Grove and Robert Down, 2 emails relating to concerns over power outages. We had a few. And the varying impacts on PGUSD sites, and one relating to TK enrollment at Robert Down. I'm just going to move on my right to the left. Trustee Carolyn Swanson, any additional communications?
Okay, thank
My
you so
right.
much. Let's see. David Avenue traffic issues. I got an email about MPUSD upcycled prom closet clothing drive, which sounded really cool. So if anyone who's listening has prom dresses or suits or tuxedos they would like to donate, let me know. I got an email about pickleball, AP honors English in classes, TK enrollment transparency concerns, A through G info concerns. I think combined with yours, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect.
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add from me. That's all of them.
I think I did see one also, and it might have been in the period previous, to us and the city council regarding the housing element.
Oh, yes.
And we got an email also regarding the upcoming WASC visit. It was an invitation for the board. That's it.
Right. Moving on to
One more, you reminded me of another one I got. I did get one about middle school soccer offering potentially multiple boys teams. There was a possibility of doing so since there were a lot of boys cut this year.
Thank you. Let's move on to board member comments, and I would love to begin with our student representative.
Hello. I know that our boys and girls basketball teams are going to CCS and also wrestling, I believe. And just the past 2 weeks, we had All-State and CCS honor choirs as well. And we just had auditions for our annual spring musical too. So very exciting. We had 47 kids from Pacific Grove High School audition. So that's a record for the last couple years. And yeah, those are the main things.
Can I ask what the musical is this year?
It is Mean Girls, the musical.
Oh.
It's really, really good.
Oh,
Very exciting.
Yes, fabulous. And yes, could not be more timely. Great, great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm gonna go next. I felt like just a teeny bit like Ted Cruz this last week while everything didn't fall apart. It actually held together when trees were falling down and power was out and I was in Mexico. It was nice to be away. It's also nice to be home. So I'll leave it with that. And moving to my right and someone else's left, Trustee McNary.
Thank you. I know we were all commenting on in the back that it's been a really long week. Doesn't feel like it's Thursday. Tired from kind of navigating the power outages. I just wanted to comment and say thank you to NCBI and Derek Williams from Black. We had our board first training for cultural proficiency, and I thought it was a really great start to our discussion. I found it valuable, and I would just say that I think we need more training, and I look forward to us having more and maybe structuring it as kind of a more comprehensive strategy and plan. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Trustee Otmar.
I don't have a lot except to say congratulations on everyone for making it through this week. I'm happy I'm not cooking with a headlamp anymore, so that's nice. And the dishwasher's working. I also just wanted to say, you know, when things like this happen, it shows us that there can be room for growth. And I think that that's a really good thing. And I think as a community coming together, we just sort of have to stand behind each other and understand that we do live in PG and the power's going to keep going out until probably lines go underground. So I'm just glad to be in the light again. So that's all I have.
Just following on that, I do want to acknowledge again how difficult the power outages, school closures, and including circulating sicknesses are for families. I know strep is running rampant, so I hope people are staying safe. I was not, but I'm in good recovery now. And there's really no simple way to address this. As you said, it's a PG&E issue, but as a school district, I'm looking forward to learning about how we can move forward from this and really address the losses of instructional times moving forward. So, and I thought really good point, Trustee Otmar, about relying on our neighbors, because we were lucky to have more power than most, and we had people checking their emails at our house, borrowing our Wi-Fi, coming over to use the laundry. So I think it is a good reminder to look for those folks that might not have power and help out where you can.
Thank you, Trustee Carolyn.
Thank you. We had a meeting prior to this, and it was like a school board appreciation resolution that we read. And I don't want to revisit that because I think we've gotten enough appreciation as adult trustees, but I wanted to acknowledge our student trustees. We have 2. So it's so nice to see you, Daisy. And if you could pass that on to Dario, that would be wonderful as well. So thank you for the time you commit to this. It's wonderful. And then you will see a resolution tonight for Women's History Month. And we're kind of shifting how we're doing our resolutions. And I just wanted to say out loud, we're doing our acknowledgement of history months the month before. So we acknowledged Black History Month in January so that February could, the full month of it could be acknowledged. So it's not an oversight. It was acknowledged previously, and you'll see the women's acknowledgement for March coming in this meeting. I did enjoy the NCBI and the Black BLAAC training, and I appreciate it, but it just seems like the more we talk about it, the more we kind of dive in, the deeper and deeper we need to go. So I'm hoping this year that the district will consider hiring a DEI coordinator. That's kind of like the path that I see forward for us to really put our money where our mouth is and move forward with this and keep it at the forefront, is to build those relationships. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to our superintendent's report. A busy week, no doubt.
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. Wonderful to see you all here this evening. And it's been a busy week. Definitely I feel like I say it to everyone right now, I survived my first PG storm. And I see what everyone's talking about now. And I have the utmost respect to all of you who have lived through many years of this. But I think what came through for me as we navigated the challenges was just this incredible sense of community that everyone showed. From our students to our staff to our families to our community members, there was just definitely this theme came through of everyone stepping in to help one another. And I think that speaks to just who PG is. I definitely empathize. I know, our power in my home was gone for 2 days, and I think I realize I can't complain at all when I learn from others that, that was going on 4 or 5 days. Some continue to be without power today. And so I think, really, I think there's a level of empathy there that, we obviously, want to continue to be able to reach out to those families. But I want to just commend our staff at all levels of their ability to be able to come forward and just, acknowledge that and be there for their students at the school sites and here at the district office, everyone stepping in from, the weekend, right, leading into it. Once the rain started on Sunday, we had our maintenance and operations teams, out there sort of clearing debris and getting ready to be sure that schools were ready, that we, had some fallen trees, trying to take care of that, to have things safe, for students as they arrived on Monday. I acknowledge the fact that we, yes, had to close 3 of our school sites on Monday. And so that really, put a great challenge on our staff and our families as well. I just want to commend our Forest Grove team. We remained without power on Tuesday for Forest Grove, but we were able to go ahead and open thanks to, again, just a lot of the combined work of all of our departments. And we opened without power other than a generator in the front to ensure we had radios and phones working. Thank you to Assistant Superintendent John and our Director of Maintenance and Operations, Director Anderson, who really with their team were able to get what we needed there, to Director Louis Algazi, ensuring we had things of technology being set up, bringing lanterns to the sites, our Director of Food Services, Director Robert Silveria, really with his team getting to ensure that we were able to give grab and go lunches, right, to our students as they left at 12:10. And to our families and our staff were just navigating and being flexible and pivoting, I think was, the word that the theme, of the week. Just everyone coming together, all of our, departments as well, HR in the sense of their being able to ensure we had subs covering where, we had some staff members unable to get to school. It just really, what it speaks to is just that encompassing everyone coming together as a team in the spirit of supporting our students and our families. So I just want to say that. I have heard from, many families and staff just along the lines of the fact we had one of our elementary schools open and one closed. And, I continue to hear that concern and talk about the discrepancy and, inequality between the 2 schools. And so please, I need everyone to know that that is something that, yes, we are working on. We are actively working on a plan, gathering input from community members. Just a conversation I was having yesterday from a parent who just had, such a great idea. But I think what we need to realize is that, we've got some solid plans that we can put into place, but it's going to take some time to implement that and be sure that we, have involved everyone who needs to be before we can actually go ahead to say this is a contingency plan that we have. But we are on the way. In the meantime, if power were to go out again, next week, we know that, yes, we have the capability to at least have a half day of instruction because of the generators we have and that we can actually do it, right? And again, I commend our staff for that. So I feel good about the immediacy, but also about the long term, which we'll continue to provide feedback. But I definitely want to involve in some of our input sessions, our staff and our families to ensure that we're hearing from everyone to, we have the best idea in moving forward. So that is that about power outages. And I think, I speak for everyone knowing that, yes, the sun is here. We have, no rain in the forecast for the next, immediate future, and a break coming up next week. And so I do hope that everyone's going to be able to take some time, right, to be with family. Very quickly, just on my listen and learn tours, I'm at 116. So, my goal was 100 within my, first 90 days. So I'm pleased to report that I am there. And my next step really is putting together a report based on the feedback that I've received from so many individuals, from our staff, our community members, our families, and students as well. Daisy, being one of them, right? And I'm excited to be able to just share, what I have been able to gather from the strengths, right, through the feedback that I received, but more importantly, just the areas that that we know that we can, do better in, and that's going to help just build our vision in moving forward. So I'm excited to be able to present that to our board and then ultimately to our community as part of our plan in moving forward. And then finally, it's LCAP season, right? And so I've been honored to join Director Rogerman in some of our recent input sessions. We are actively engaging our students, our staff, and our families in looking at our current goals. On the agenda this evening, you will see is an update of our LCAP, which really Director Rogerman will share with you some of the progress towards our goals and talk to you about, the process of as we start building our next 3-year LCAP plan. Many of those discussions, as I've had, with individuals, but also at those input sessions, I keep going back to the concern with some of our decreased graduation rates and our decrease in number of students who are meeting our A through G eligibilities and requirements. And so that's going to be something that Director Rogerman will be giving some very specific and detailed information on our plans on how we are looking at addressing that decrease as well. So I'm looking forward to you being able to hear, more from him. And also on the agenda tonight, you're going to be hearing from one of our TOSAs, Bryce Gamble at the middle school, and so much of the work that is being done at the middle school level currently to address some of those gaps, but also build capacity amongst our staff and ensure we're providing our students with all the tools they need to succeed. So looking forward to you hearing more about that. And that is really it, other than our, TK Parent Information Night. I did want to be sure that everyone knows that is coming up. It is March 13th. Information will be following from the school sites and also from the district as well. We'll be sharing more information. But March 13th at 6 p.m. for TK and kindergarten incoming families, we will be sharing more information about our programs there as well. And that's it, other than just with the break next week. I hope everyone gets to enjoy some time off as our schools are closed. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Adamson. Let's move on to our safety report, and I think the handoff is to you, Joshua Jordan.
Thank you, President Swanson. Quick update tonight, the Safe Schools and Communities Consortium Leadership Team meeting is tomorrow in Salinas, bringing all of the county LEAs that have opted into that. Principal Martinez and I will be representing Pacific Grove Unified School District at that meeting. Tomorrow is a continued focus and discussion on mental health threat assessments. And we're focusing more on the data sharing agreements that are needed between the local educational agencies, child behavioral services, behavioral health, and our law enforcement entities. So more to come on that, and I'll report back to the board on that as we move through that process. PGUSD and Kimball and Associates is finally nearing completion. I mentioned this at the last meeting, but we're getting close to nearing completion of the district-wide threat and risk assessment. Principal Martinez and I are getting together with Kimball and Associates here in the upcoming weeks to finalize that, sift through some of the data, and then prepare a report to the board. So more to come. We're looking at potential update to the board in March. On the storms update, just a couple of things. I know Dr. Adamson covered it pretty much in total at this point, but I wanted to mention that PGUSD is looking to work with our PG city leaders as well as the Pebble Beach Homeowners Association to place a little bit of pressure on PG&E. We all know that there's been repairs to aerial lines over and over and over again, specifically those that feed Forest Grove Elementary School and a huge chunk of the Del Monte Forest. So there is some movement on that, and we'll be bringing updates to the board in the future as that progresses. All sites, as Dr. Adamson mentioned, were back up and fully operational on February 7th. Some of the district infrastructure damage, it was minimal this year, primarily isolated to the adult school. We had the preschool building that had a tree fall on it. No structural damage, but definitely a large claim for the district. as well as the playground that continues to get battered every time the storms come through. Fortunately for the district, the fence was only damaged. The two trees that fell, they actually missed all of the new playground equipment completely, which was a blessing. The district is still working on debris cleanup throughout the district at the adult school and at PG High School. We've got a few trees down at the high school over on the JV field. And then Director Anderson is working to have approximately 35 trees that were already previously tagged removed here in the upcoming weeks. And we'll bring an update too on where we're at with FEMA on the FEMA reimbursement from storms last year. So that's it tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you being on top of that too. I just was thinking for a second too, before I move on, it's like that saying, it's like if a tree falls in a forest, is anybody here? And I think here in Pacific Grove, people are hearing about it. So I hope so, at least, and I know you're on that. So let's move on to PGUSD staff comments. I am going to read just a brief kind of disclaimer before we jump in because it's been a bit. So public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to board action on each item. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are kindly asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item pursuant to board policy 9323. Speakers will be called sequentially until there is no speaker coming forward on the agenda item or the amount of time allocated for the agenda item has elapsed, whichever comes first. This is a meeting of the Board of Education. It is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. Please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place an item on a future agenda. That said, let's move on to PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items. If we have anyone, by all means, please step forward to the podium.
In light of the recent storms. Turn it on. There we go. In light of the recent storms and everything happening at Robert Down, I just wanted to take a moment and commend our amazing classified staff. They were out there, they were handling the children. The children were cooped up inside. They didn't have a lot of recess time. And our classified staff, they just stepped up and they loved these children. They are so articulate, smart, amazing people. And I just really appreciate every single one of those people out there that are out there at lunch and in the classrooms. And I feel honored to work with such wonderful people in the classified staff. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other, anybody online, Lewis? No one? Thank you. Any additional staff comments? It looks like we have one more.
I'm Mary Riedel. I'm helping out Matt Bell and the district and kind of holding the fort down and at Robert Down while Mr. Keller's on a medical leave. So I just wanted to come up and say, I really appreciate, you were reading my mind, Christina, wherever you are, our yellow jackets, but also the staff. They've been welcoming and very patient, and they're handling us with a lot of grace because we're just kind of feeling our way. We're not new to the district, but it's been a while since either one of us have been in an elementary setting. And they're so little and cute, and I don't remember getting a lot of hugs at the middle school when I was there, but I get a lot of hugs from the little ones. So anyway, I'm very happy to help, and I'm honored to have been asked. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And Elliot, Lewis, I'm sorry, anybody else? Nobody else online, and I see nobody else. And so let's move on to community members on non-agenda items. We have one. Let's queue him up. It looks like Mike Gibbs online.
Evening, school board members. It's Mike Gibbs. I'm a PG resident. Thank you for getting us off to a good start this year. I just want to mention a couple of things. There's been a lot of talk about threat assessment and mental health and all important things, bias, incident reporting, and other kind of training that's going on. And being an educator for about 40 years, I always found that kids, basically K through 12 kids wanted projects to work on. So many of you know that we founded a company 20 years ago to teach kids entrepreneurship. I would encourage the school district to implement programs, particularly a project-based learning that allows some kind of a competition among students and maybe even among schools. Come up with a project, give them a very specific goal or problem to solve, and we will help sponsor a competition among the schools to give kids real world projects. I remember about 10 years ago, we have a friend that he was a part of the invention team for the MRI. He sent his kid to Harvard. His son came back and asked his dad about buying a car, and the kid didn't know how to calculate compound interest on the car after $100,000 education. So real world skills go a long way. And I'd like to see the school put a lot more emphasis on that. And I think it gives the kids a lot better grasp of life, gives them meaning to what they're doing. It gives them some purpose and objectives in this relatively complex world. And one of the things that we teach is something called ZOG. And all of our students are, we talk with them every day about zest, optimism, and grit, the positive characteristics in life that we can all find models for and advance to the school population. So anyway, just what can we do from an entrepreneurship standpoint? Let's get some of the kids involved in school, in government projects. I'm on the Economic Development Commission. Let's have some of the kids pitch their ideas at the Economic Development Commission. They get free minutes, 3 minutes for free, talk about apps they're inventing or projects they're working on or things that they're selling online, or, maybe they've got some kind of a side hustle going on. Come and tell us about it, and maybe we can help out. So just keep that please in mind when you're discussing all these other weighty issues. Thank you for what you do, and I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Mr. Gibbs. Do we have anybody else online, Louis? Hand raised. And do we have anybody else? I see nobody. So thank you for that. And we are going to move on to our consent agenda, which is 13 items long, A through M. Going to move over to the board. Are there any issues with the consent agenda as presented at this time?
I'd like to pull consent M, please. It's MOU with Monterey Peninsula Soccer.
Okay. Any others that you'd wish to pull? You can jump in after the fact, or once we get through there. Dr. Hazen, nothing? Okay, so knowing that we're looking at pulling M, let's move on to, I think we should jump into public comment about any other concerns before we move into approving consent. Are there any public comments online? I see nothing. Anyone in the room? No other concerns as it relates to consent. So board, I'm looking for a motion to approve consent with the exclusion of item M.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Oh,
Okay,
sorry,
we have
Laura.
a motion from trustee McNary, a second from trustee Carolyn Swanson. Can all approved? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm sorry, trustee or our student representative. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so consent passes unanimously with the exclusion of item M, and I would just like to move directly on to consent item M, if we could tackle that. And I'm gonna try to find it here, but let's start, if we can, with trustee Carolyn and concerns as it relates to consent item M.
Thank you, President Swanson. So this item might just need some more clarity for me. So I want to acknowledge that it feels kind of like a complex decision. Actually, on one hand, I know that we have Monterey Peninsula Soccer that have been wonderful donators and many years, as long as I've been paying attention to the board, maybe 8+ years. They've given thousands of dollars every year to our girls and boys soccer team. And I don't want to discount that whatsoever. at the same time, I'm reading this MOU saying that we're going to, first of all, it wasn't clear to me if they're already using the soccer fields because they're giving us a donation or if they are paying a fee. So can you first answer that? Are they paying a fee to use our soccer fields?
No, they have not been paying a fee for some time to use the soccer fields. They simply donate. That was some sort of an informal arrangement. As I dug deeper into it, I found that we needed a certificate of insurance on file and we should have an MOU on file. So that's where we developed this agreement. But no, they're currently using the fields other than the donation. That's how they pay to use the fields. And that was an informal at the site level that went back, I don't know how many years, quite some time.
Okay. And so for me, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with kind of the vagueness of the MOU because it just says that they're going to give us a donation in order to use our facilities. And I know that an MOU isn't exactly a contract. It's more like a friendly document that helps explain, you know, the parameters and expectations of a contract. But since there's no specific consideration besides a donation, I feel like our PTAs, our WAVE program, our fill in the blank, other entities that use our facilities that also donate either monetarily or in their own way to our district will have an issue with this and that it will create confusion and perhaps hurt feelings, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wanting to ask tonight, is there a way that we can apply the same rules to everyone?
So they're not a booster. And again, it was an informal agreement that existed for some time, which unfortunately we inherited. I mean, I wanted to make sure there was a lot in this agreement associated with, like, you know, their interaction with students, if any. I mean, these are adults, right? But if there were students on campus, even though it's after hours. So right now, our fee schedule did have a 1A fee schedule, which was a modified schedule for the WAVE. The WAVE has now been converted to a booster, and they actually don't pay fees for use of our facilities anymore because they're now a booster, a PGUSD booster. Other entities that are associated with the fee schedule, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but there's a whole lot of parameters associated with use of our facilities under Civic Center Act. I would be kind of hesitant to set kind of a floor as to what the donation should be, simply because the district's had such a great relationship with them for so many years. I mean, this year, I think it was just around just under 15,000, I think 7,600 per program. But there have been years that have been much less, right? So, you know, I'm at the pleasure of the board, you know, looking to move forward with this MOU. They are currently using our fields, and I did need a certificate of insurance, which I do now have in place, which is associated with this MOU. So, you know, I'll take the recommendation of the board as it stands moving forward.
Could I ask a follow-up question on that? I mean, based on the concept of everyone, is there anything holding back other groups from entering a similar MOU based on donation? Because if not, I would say it is open to all equally.
But it's, to me, the equality or the equity in it varies so widely because the donation amount is not specified. So specifically, I'm thinking about our PTAs and how many times I've seen them working so hard for our schools. I mean, our district even, you know, anyways, I don't have to go down that road. We all know how much they contribute. It's an incredible amount. I think that if one solution could be that if Monterey Peninsula Soccer, because they have been so generous with us, if we just apply the standard fee that we would apply to anybody, if they want to give us more money, of course they can. But then we don't have any appearance of impropriety or favoritism or discrimination when it comes to other groups.
Fellow board members, any additional thoughts?
I see both of your points, and I think, Trustee Hazen, it becomes a slippery slope, right? I mean, once we open the door and we say it works for this group, well, then how do we determine who gets to be the next group, who has access, and why do they have access and not me? And that conversation gets really complicated, and I do see hurt feelings coming our way. And it's unfortunate that it sounds like it hasn't been memorialized, like there wasn't anything formalized in writing with regard to our agreement. We've just been appreciating the donations of these good people, and they've been using our fields, and maybe some sort of handshake took place at some time, and now we're here. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I still have concerns with not evenly applying things and the problems that this could create too. That's where I'm at.
Trustee Otmar, any thoughts on this front?
I look at this as what Mr. Jordan is saying, an MOU, I mean, we're not signing into contract. It's a memorandum of understanding, and thankfully now we have insurance in place. We're protected if someone gets injured on the property, and we have determined that they will not have contact with kids on campus. So I'm fine with this. I don't see that anyone would have hurt feelings. We're not excluding anybody and saying, unless you have an MOU, you can't come on campus. I'm fine with us moving through it. I don't see an issue, and I don't really want to pick at something or make something bigger than it needs to be.
Thank you. Student trustee, any thoughts here?
I feel like I understand both sides, and I feel like it's important to make sure everyone's like on the same page and like going by kind of the same rules so people don't get upset. But I don't know if people really would get that upset, but I don't know. I don't have any too strong opinions. I think they both make sense.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we go to public comment or online comment, which I guess are the same things, you know, over the years, and it's been a few now, I've never seen anything but generosity from this organization. And I know it may be less than perfect, but again, it's like I hear no complaints from the organization. They've been nothing but supportive. And you know, I love to see our facilities get used, and knowing that not only are they being used, but that it's benefiting the district is just a double gainer. So those are my thoughts on it. I would support moving forward, but let's take a look again. Lewis, you see no one online. Do we have anybody in public in the room with any thoughts? I see nobody, and again, nobody online. So I would love to move this forward if there is anybody would.
Could I ask another question just quickly?
Yes, by all means.
Josh, do you have a rough estimate what the facility fees would be for the use that they're doing?
I mean, it would be substantially less than the donation,
Right. And so, I mean,
but
guess-
I haven't ran the numbers.
right. I guess what I'm saying is if we had a number that was substantially less, and say as long as donations are above that number, would that be would that be meeting that comfort level, or is it really you think the fees need to be paid first before the donations could be considered?
However we do it for everyone else who uses our facilities, that's what I want. So, whatever that is, however that looks, staff would have more details on that than I would. But I think that having a clear contract, we don't have a contract with them. We only have an MOU, right?
That's correct. And we do have other MOUs that exist. Monterey Bay Swim Club is one, and that's an in-kind services agreement as well, non-monetary in-kind. I mean, there are definitely other MOUs the district has. That's just the other one I can think of off the top of my head.
Which maybe we need to look at those too,
We
you
just
know?
did a new one and brought it back in the spring with Monterey Bay Swim Club.
I do recall that, and I probably should have brought it up at that time. But just going forward, you know, all of these decisions that we see, every day is a new day. I'm a trustee. I'm supposed to take new information as we get it and learn and evolve as I go. And I'm just running through all of our decisions as, are these equitable? Do these make sense? Do these benefit a group that maybe has known us a long time versus, is this being fair to people who come in new? We need to be a place of belonging, and so starting going forward, I will be saying the same thing with items like this. And I won't be able to vote yes on it tonight if we can't apply the same rule to everyone.
Can I ask one more clarification? I mean, the subject of PTAs were brought up too, right? My understanding PTAs, when using a site, they're not paying facilities fees, are they?
So any school connected organization should not be paying fees. Any booster 501s, even if they're a 501c3,
Right.
should not be paying fees. The way that it reads is free use of the district related meetings, PGUSD school groups, clubs, approved and school connected organizations, booster clubs, and the Boys and Girls Club.
So on that, if this were a booster, since they are donating, if MPSL was considered a booster because they're donating money to the soccer, they would also not be subject to fees under those rules.
Correct.
So this is an MOU, in my mind, that's talking about just a little bit different designation. So, I mean, we could tell them to come back and be a booster and then they meet those needs, but otherwise I feel, yeah, I feel fine supporting as is because that's the basic function they're playing.
Yeah, and as the discussion continues, I feel it's important again for me to say, this has been a fantastic group of people that have come repeatedly and given us donations. This has nothing to do with personality whatsoever. This is just process, and I think process needs to be the same for all.
Any additional board comments? Nobody online, Louis, and I see nobody in the room with their hand raised or approaching the podium. Board, do we have a motion either way?
I'll move to pass consent M.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Otmar, a second from trustee Hazen. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
No.
Passes 3-2. Thank you, everyone. And let's move on to, that concludes any items remaining on consent and to public hearing. And so we're going to gavel this in at February 8th, 7:10 p.m. Public hearing to Government Code Section 4217.12. District's governing board will hold a public hearing on the energy savings and cost savings associated with the proposed energy services agreement for HVAC lighting and other energy conservation measures to be installed at various district sites.
Thank you, sir.
Jordan.
So I'm going to go through just some of the kind of Q&A that we've received, the district has received from the community and the trustees, and just kind of highlight the project. This is the 6th time I think we brought this forward. So first and foremost, all of the scope of work in this agreement does adhere to the intent of Measure D, General Obligation Bond Program, and it also adheres to board direction as it relates to addressing air quality issues within the district. Not all, but some. The project meets all statutory requirements for prevailing wage as noted in California Labor Code 1771 through 1773. The project will be engineered and designed by ABM Group as the engineer of record, and they will be responsible for all approvals to the Division of State Architect. There's no change orders allowed for in this agreement. PGUSD has been provided a positive opinion of council on both the ABM agreement and the 4217 mechanism for delivery. The district did determine that the Government Code Section 4217 award in lieu of multiple projects was advantageous for the following reasons. An energy services agreement component will provide PGUSD a guaranteed reduction in operational expenditures associated with the scope of work assigned in this project. No delay due to professional coordination of architect of record, mechanical engineer, structural engineer, civil engineer, and so on associated with this project. A single contractor with the district with district-wide scope in lieu of multiple prime contractors would mean that there is no need for Pacific Grove Unified to hire a construction manager or project manager. PGUSD staff is not built to manage procurement, design development, submittal process review, project day-to-day oversight, and closeout. They're just not built to staff that. We don't have it in the maintenance department, and we have one director of facilities and operations, and to provide projects that oversee the entire district, that would be something that just wouldn't be within the capacity of that department. We would have one point of contact and no additional soft cost to Pacific Grove Unified as it relates to design approvals. The district would have a variety of projects addressed under an energy services agreement that would otherwise have increased hard costs by multiple bid awards. Multiple bid awards means a number of things with general contractors. It means multiple mobilization costs, multiple contractors sending in a variety of submittals at a given time, and separate schedules and project coordination. ABM has professional engineers and architects that have validated the ADA requirements of the project, and the given scope of work of the project does meet the California requirements under ADA, and the only site that we have anticipated ADA improvements, which is the 20% threshold. And if I could, I'll just describe that quickly. Any project that affects fire, life safety, access compliance, or structural review on a school campus triggers a 20% ADA improvement. That's 20% of the cost, total cost of that portion of the project. In addition, the project is subject to review by DSA and their rigorous requirements are set by that department. And that's just for the ADA component. Director Anderson and Assistant Superintendent Joran, who are familiar with the existing systems and submittal process, will review and approve all product submittals for the project. All inspections will be done by a Division State Architect, Inspector of Record, or IOR, retained by the district. PGUSD will have a performance guarantee of 15 years associated with this agreement, during which time ABM will have measurement and verification meters and data logging equipment installed on all of our panels and our HVAC and lighting systems, as well as our building automation systems, to verify compliance with the performance guarantee. No tax credits or rebates have been identified with this project. However, PGUSD is going to submit the entire project scope as a direct pay energy credit under the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. That's a direct pay credit back to the LEA. That's something that changed in 2022. Now, there's no guarantees we'll receive a direct pay tax credit, but we do retain those tax credits under federal law. ABM is current. This is another component that we didn't talk about before. It was brought up by one of our members of the public related to CalShape. So in addition, at no additional cost, ABM is pursuing CalShape on behalf of the school district under a separate item. The district is expected to receive around $400,000 in grant funding from the state if approved. Phase 1 associated with CalShape will be to conduct an additional assessment along with ABM's initial assessment, and that's per the statutory requirement of CalShape. CalShape will provide 50% of the grant up front to the district for that assessment, so that's no money out of the pocket of the district. It comes straight from the state. Once the assessment is completed and approved by the state, CalShape will release the other 50% for various ventilation improvement projects. So it's not much, it's about $200,000, but that can help us with economizer repairs and some of the other controls issues that the district has. Phase 2 of the CalShape approvals process equates to around $2 million worth of HVAC upgrades specifically. Now, there's no guarantee that the district will receive the $2 million. That's phase 2. It's a first come, first served program. We've talked about this before. It is based also on free and reduced meal population within each LEA. But it would help the district with future projects if the district was awarded that second phase. And the lump sum agreement associated with this contract is $5,667,485,000. It is a lump sum agreement under Government Code 4217. And once more, I'll recognize the fact that this agreement received positive opinion in council. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's open this up to board discussion. It is a public hearing. So board members, anyone want to raise their hand? Comments, questions, clarifications?
Point of order, I think because it's a public hearing, we do that on the next item.
On the action item.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay. So where do we go from here? Is there anyone online, Lewis? No one? Anyone in the room? All right. By all means, please make sure that you hit the button on the microphone so that it up here at the podium. Yep. Make sure you hit the button so it's green when you're speaking.
I heard what you said, and my response to that is multiple contractors aren't necessarily a bad thing, especially if there's only two to choose from. I haven't been to prior meetings, but I came this evening to ask whether you've considered hiring a local contractor versus one that's based in New York. The reason I ask is it's likely only a local contractor who would know about local incentives offered by your local utility for work of the nature and type that you're doing. PG&E rewards various types of energy efficiency work with cash and 0% non-recourse financing, which is paid by your savings, not by your accountant. Incentives for things that you want to do, such as changing your lights to LED lights retrofitting or purchasing new furnace and air conditioning units, even insulating, window film, weather stripping, and other things, which I've read in the notice. I understand that you've had discussions about grants and money that you'll save by having less maintenance. Services any sophisticated contractor can provide. But why leave any money on the table, especially when your local utility is so anxious to give it away? If a local contractor, 20-minute drive away, can provide the same goods and services as one on the other side of the continent and has a local phone number, not a long distance call if you need to reach them, and can shave at least 10% or likely more from the cost of the out-of-town contractor, why not consider it? A local company who is the lead contractor for the energy efficiency retrofit at the San Jose Convention Center, the Santa Clara Convention Center, the Santa Rosa Center for the Performing Arts, Pebble Beach, the lodge at Pebble Beach, and all their properties, Spyglass Hill, Old Del Monte, who works at large shopping centers like the Fresno Fashion Fair and the Crossroads here in Carmel Plaza as well, whose food processing customers include Dole, Del Monte Foods, Mann Packing, hotels such as Hilton Hotels, Hyatt, Hampton Inn, Seascape Village, and Aptos, to name a few. And least I forget, San Carlos School and St. Francis School and others. My name is Robert Finn, and I own a company by the name of American Energy Partners here in Monterey. I can provide further details if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Finn. Is there, we have two people online. Lewis, can we go to first in line, please?
Hello, good evening. My name is Masha Sartunch. I am here trying to cover for my husband, who is just now finishing his basketball reffing, and he is not able to be here. Hopefully you will give him an opportunity to speak later when he actually manages to log in. So I will start. Hopefully he can pick it up. So I'm just going to read off his notes. He asked for an assessment report produced by ABM Solutions in writing, and PGUSD could not give him that assessment report due to the contract language. To give you background, he is a mechanical engineer and a local business owner who works with schools directly. He was told that the only way the public could see the assessment, district needed to pay $35,000 to ABM Solutions, and he thought that was not right because public funded bond money and public should be able to see that assessment prior to committing millions of dollars. So he had some notes. The biggest one was that their Falagia project, the board will approve the design prior to bidding. There is no design on the contract. It is a large contract and it really should go to bid. And it doesn't seem like it is going to bidding. The same about Bond Oversight Committee. It doesn't seem that this project was presented in detail to the Oversight Committee. On the website, there is available a very detailed project plan, and that plan does not reflect what was presented in the ABM document that was open to public. Some middle school adjustments were in the ABM presentations, but they are not in what is available on the website. So we are asking for transparency. It would be kind of, expected that the large project of this size, and it is what, almost $30 million, it's gonna go to bid because according to California law, projects over 15,000 or 50,000, depending on where they fall, should go to bid. Another question he had, who's gonna review and approve the equipment quality for the district? energy conservation projects. Some of these projects are not energy conservation projects. They should be named differently. They don't fall under the Measure D. Robert Down furnace units are just 3 years younger than Forest Grove units. Are there any plans to upgrade in those? And the rest of the HVAC equipment also, he wants to know if there is a plans for that. There are a lot more questions. I sure hope he can log in because he went through a lot of trouble going through it all. And thank you very much for my time. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Louis, we have another person still online as well? Or did we lose him?
Hi, thank you. My name is Nadine Roldan. I am a Pacific Grove parent. I have 2 students who already graduated the district and 1 in 8th grade. So my concern with this project, it's a multi-million-dollar project, and through law, Public Contract Code 20111, a bid in this amount or a project in this amount must go to public bid, and it has not gone to bid. So there's no transparency. This company was chosen, and the deal seems like it's already been made. And to get a full report that the district has to pay $35,000 to see a full report is outrageous. I mean, that lacks transparency 1,000%. So that's my concern. And as a Pacific Grove citizen, you know, it's a bond money that is being spent, and it's public money that's been paid by the homeowners of Pacific Grove. And we are entitled to know exactly where this money is going to and have a say so into it. My brother-in-law works for not an HVAC company, but a construction company, and they are local and they work for schools all the time when they post bids. And nothing has come through for Pacific Grove at all on this matter. And so everything's being done behind, it seems like, closed doors. And because some people, it seems like, have already, like I said, made a handshake commitment to this company, and this is where it's going to go. But I mean, this is a lot of money. And like, again, the lack of transparency, not posting a bid is not good. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. We have one additional, at least at this moment, person online with a comment. Louis, by all means, bring him in. iPhone 4. If you want to identify yourself further, by all means do so. You're not required to, but would love to know you more than just iPhone 4. Somebody might have just accidentally dialed in too. iPhone 4, we're looking for you. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Can you knock that one out, Louis? Thank you. All right. So, all right. And I see no one. Oh, nope. All right. iPhone 4, you're back online. First time caller. You know what? Let's do this. While we try to figure out iPhone 4, I think somebody needs a bio break or two here. So let's just pause for, I'm going to say 3-minute pause. Anybody that needs to take a minute, and let's do that. Okay. And then we'll come back in 3 and really.
Hello?
3. All right. We're going to pause you, iPhone 4, because we're now in a 3-minute break. So hang in there.
Hello?
We hear you. Just hang in there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're on a break. Can you let him know, Brian?
Brian, will you let him know?
That
Yeah,
was
I
great.
can
Can you-
try, I can
We can't
try
hear him
to.
On the mic.
Yeah, we're in a 3-minute break, so please hang in there,
All right.
whoever you might be.
It sounds like him.
Okay.
I am.
Maybe it's halftime at the basketball game.
Okay, we're back after break. Louis, do we still have our, all right, and board, are we ready to resume? Okay, here we go. Online comment, please begin if you can still hear us.
Can you guys hear me now?
I didn't hear that.
Hey.
We got you, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Metin Sertunç, and I talked last board meeting about the ABM contract. I reviewed the contract. Contract is oversold to me. There are a lot of inconsistencies about the scope of work, and I prepare a documentation and send it to the board members and the superintendent. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. Like when we are talking about some of the projects are not energy upgrade projects. These are like Band-Aid projects, and it can be done individually. And I don't think it's going to require too much, management from the district. And like the inconsistencies are, we are changing the furnaces, gas-fired furnaces in the forest grow. We are adding an air conditioning in Robert Town as a heat pump, which is all electric, and we are converting the home economic classroom gas-fired ranges with the all electric. And one of the other thing that we are talking about, all the water conservation measures about the plumbing fixture and faucet changes. I mean, they are very easy to do it. The main problem is probably the old pipes, sewer pipes, water pipes. Nobody's changing on those. They excluded a lot of structural upgrades. For example, when you put the rooftop unit on the Robert Town, definitely they need some structural upgrade. That is excluded in the contract. And all the building management system that they are talking about, there is a very simple system, actually. I don't think there is enough cost to justify what they are asking for. And then adding the generator is not in the list of the measure D. And then, I'm just going to try to, because why do we need publicly traded outside company to do this? There is no consistency in the district-wide HVAC replacement. We are changing the furnaces with the furnaces. And there's also, I mentioned about I have some questions because I don't have too much time left. I'm gonna try to bring it up and finish my time, okay? Because I am in the car and I am trying to, okay, here is my conclusion, okay? This is not the way to encourage the voters to vote for another measure. If you hire ABM solution today, I will be very disappointed to each of you, including the CBO. I will also be just like another voter to oppose any new bond instead of supporting the bond measures. Better schools are better.
And I'm sorry to have to interrupt,
Yeah.
but we do have to limit our comments to 3 minutes. And
Okay, fine.
those 3 minutes are up. So thank you very much for your comments.
I hope
Um,
you guys reviewed it, whatever I sent it to you guys, because if you are not sure, if you have any question regarding to that contract, you should not approve it today.
Thank you very much. Louis, do we have anybody else online with their hand raised? Okay, and do we have anyone in the room that wants to comment? By all means.
Good evening, everybody. This is Director Anderson, MOT. In my previous job, I've worked with on-bill financing with our local PG&E. I've worked with similar projects elsewhere with other companies. I have not worked with ABM specifically, but the concept is sound. It's proven. There's other companies that do this. Yes, ABM has come to the table with what I consider to be a very great offer. Personally, I'm pretty much tapped out. I think that Josh has alluded to that. If I'm going to be running other Measure D projects, I'm not going to have time to take on these. And the only way we'd be able to do this in-house, as people have suggested, would be to hire 3 or 4 people to run these projects and take them out to bid. Government Code 4217 allows for this type of acquisition. And so it doesn't need to be publicly bid in the same way a potential contract would be for just, HVAC replacement without energy conservation measures. So I would like to plead with you to carefully consider this and realize that if we are to do the work of Measure D expeditiously and provide good air quality and heating and comfort to our students and faculty, this is probably the best road to get there. If I am put in the position where I'm going to have to take all this stuff out to bid, there's no way impossible. It's going to take 10 or 20 years if it's just left to one person. So you have a choice: hire up and do it internally, as some people are suggesting, which, Measure D doesn't supply new employees to take this on, but Measure D does supply the funds for us to expeditiously do these things that we owe our students. And we owe this to our faculty to come to work and work in a comfortable environment. We have furnaces that are failing because they're 28 and 30 and 40 years old. And last time I was up here, we talked about 4 furnaces that went down. And this last week, we had 8 more go down. We had power outages, and when things came back up, we're having to call contractors because the systems are so old that we're having to reprogram because they're losing programs to get them back and running. If we want to continue with that path, let's do it the way we're doing it. If we want to see these things solved, we need to hire a company like ABM to help us expeditiously take that path. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else new online, Louis? No one. Anyone else in the room? Okay, and so knowing that, then I believe we close public hearing on February 8th, 7:39 p.m. We will close public hearing on this item. And move on to board discussion for approval of resolution number 1118. I'd like to start with our student rep, and any thoughts on this whole shebang and what we're talking about here?
Well, I feel like there's definitely a lot to unpack, but from what I'm understanding, I think it is important that the public can understand what's going on and everyone feels on the same page. And I think it is important that we fix, like, if there's furnaces not working, that like people can feel warm while they're learning. I feel like that's very important. Like, I know at the high school sometimes ours go out and we're all freezing in class and we're like, what do we do? But I think it is important that the public knows what's going on too, and that we have like all questions answered so everyone is pleased as well. So
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Hazen.
One thing, just thinking about these power outages, I have dreamed about a future of solar energy with batteries to back up all of our sites. And I remember from my own house, one of the first things you need to do is secure the building envelope. And I think that's one of the issues that we're facing. You don't put solar panels on a leaky roof or on a leaky structure and try to make up that way. So I guess my question would be is, how far would this ABM contract get us towards being more prepared for future storms, for example?
It's going to go around the horn to Trustee Otmar. I'm sorry.
That was actually a question.
Oh, that was a question. I'm sorry. I thought you were, I sort of took it as just like.
Rhetorical.
Well, I will say that he just took
Sorry.
a
I'm
whole lot
sorry.
of thoughts
I'm
out of
so
my
sorry.
head. So this is, you're getting, it's a 2-for-1 for the question.
Yeah, I mean, so Measure D was designed, so I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, in my 24 years doing this, primarily in school facilities, I've never seen a general obligation passed by the public, and I may have said this before, that's specifically for deferred maintenance. Because that's what the language does not say deferred maintenance, but the scope of work identified in the bond language is for deferred maintenance. That was a surprise to me when I applied for the position here, looking at what the GEO bond program was. It was a surprise to me when I looked at scope of work assigned to Measure D projects. So that being said, when I also started here, there was $130,000 in deferred maintenance fund 14, which doesn't go very far. And I'm assuming that's why that this district went out to the voters for a deferred maintenance general obligation bond. GEO bonds are designed primarily, right, for modernization, new construction, and capitalized equipment improvement. That's not the case with what this GEO bond was sold to the voters for. And it's pretty clear in the language, in the bond language, as well as the language on our website, which is not the bond language. So to answer your question, it's a start, Dr. Hazen. There is a lot that has to be done in this district that has not been done over the years, and I can't give you an answer as to the why. What I can tell you is that we're trying to make substantive steps, like I want to take 10 steps forward, not just one. And that's why we looked at packaging a project like this. Yes, energy conservation measures are included in the project, but there's also a lot of deferred maintenance. So that is correct, as the public has stated. Absolutely. But we wanted to package it all together into one project so we could get more economies of scale done under one agreement. I mentioned everything else about project, managing projects earlier. I won't go into that detail now, but the big takeaway for me under Government Code 4217 is the ongoing operational expenditure offset that the district will receive as a guarantee. This is not new to local educational agencies. It might be new to Pacific Grove Unified School District. It's certainly not new to the other 23 districts in this county, as well as the rest of the state of California. So I would say, yes, we're making a substantive step forward. And there's a heck of a lot more to do. We'll have $19 million worth of authorization left on Measure D. And yes, there's discussion about future tax extensions on the table as well. But this district needs to start making substantive moves because we're so far behind. I don't even know where to start. And I empathize with Director Anderson and his entire crew, because for maintenance and a couple of utility workers are just not going to play catch up on 30 years worth of neglect.
Just to follow on that is, I cannot state enough how important it is to hear from the public. So I do appreciate those comments there, but I also appreciate the need being presented to us by the district. So thank you.
So for me, I mean, if this is not something that would have to go out for bid, it does not need to. Is that correct?
That's correct. What we're doing is we're trying to execute 4217, which is an energy services agreement, right? So under that, you can do a direct award to a sole entity. Yes, what the public brought up is absolutely accurate. There are requirements associated with public bidding. There's $15,000 thresholds that was mentioned. We're also a California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting approved district, which sets other thresholds, right? So public bids above 200,000, actually it changes just about every few years. So there's a lot of different thresholds associated with public bidding and award. But this type of a project is not subject to that because it's an energy services agreement by which all the contract award and scope included results in ongoing energy savings to a district that are guaranteed.
Okay. So when I was looking up ABM, I see that CSBA has them on their website, that they're affiliated with CSBA. And that gives me confidence because I trust CSBA. It gives me confidence that we're selecting the right people to do the job. If this is not something that needs to go out to bid, I'm in favor of it. I understand where the hesitation could be by seeing that we paid $35,000 to have it all laid out in front of us. but we have it all laid out in front of us. So this to me is transparency. I can read through and I can tell you about the raised toilet VBT length to 9 inches to meet the code require. Like, I know about the toilets now. I know everything that I need to know. So I guess my point is, I trust what's happening. I trust you. I trust Director Anderson to do what's best for this district. And I'm not here to micromanage at all. And if this is the way that it's moving forward, then I support that wholeheartedly. So thank you.
Trustee McNary?
Thank you. I see the huge need for maintenance work in our sites, and I know this is a situation that most of us have inherited. This is probably maintenance that's been deferred for so long that we needed a bond, just to kind of try and get up to speed. And I'm looking at this as a contract. And I'm not comfortable with the transparency of the process or of the current proposed service agreement. So we're currently talking about approval of a resolution, which requires us to say that the terms in the agreement are in the best interest of the district. And I'm struggling with that. Because number one, this is public money. Like, we went out for a bond. It's $5.6 million of the public's money. And the fact that we are handpicking a single source vendor and proposing to pay them $5.6+ million of money without transparency in the detail of what we're getting or the data to support the proposed agreement is troubling. There is no labor cost breakdown. There is no materials cost breakdown. The payment schedule is vague. The timeline for performance is 15 years. I read through and it doesn't say that cost or change orders come back to the board. Those are all approved at the discretion of staff. So in theory, if we say yes today, the scope of the agreement could change, the cost of the agreement could change, and the board has no oversight. And I see us as being, that's our job. Like, we're accountable to the public. We're a publicly elected people. If they come and say like, hey, why'd you switch out those light bulbs for LED? I want to be able to say like, oh, the number before was 4 and now we have a better number on this. But I don't have those data points. I don't have a starting air quality number, proposed changes, and then the improvement we expect to see. And it sounds like those are kind of the data numbers that were being asked of back at the December meeting when I wasn't here. Where is the assessment, the underlying data that supports the proposed energy savings agreement? Like a list of items to spend money on without a cost associated, it doesn't work for me. Like, we don't have a breakdown by site. We don't have a breakdown for labor or materials. And with the current information we have, I'm not comfortable moving forward. I do see this as another, I see the need, and I don't see this as the proper approach if we are going to continue to seek more money from the public for bonds, and we're going to need to tell them how we're spending their money. I just want us to do it right. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm not comfortable with it as it's proposed. So those are my comments.
I guess we're up to me at this point. Some of these questions have already been answered. Are we in compliance? Yes. We're in compliance. It's like, I know it's maybe out of the usual norm, but we're in compliance. And that's one of my biggest concerns, so long as we're, but it's not my primary concern. My primary concern is, what are we doing for our students and our staff in this district? And right now, I know a lot of them go to school every day and they're cold, and the windows are drafty and it's not a great environment. And what can we do to improve that? Because if we have our students and staff uncomfortable, it's difficult to learn. And for me, when I look at that, that's an easy yes. This is an organization, this is a company that has a proven track record, that has worked with numerous other affiliated CSBA organizations. They have a proven record, and there's a guarantee too that if this doesn't work, we get paid for it. I don't want to sit around and ask them every day after day what kind of light bulb they might be putting in. I don't know what the best light bulb is. I can hardly figure that out in my house, let alone across a district. So long story short, and I felt like we were just a hair away from it this last time. We were just breath away, but we had the wrong date on a document of getting this passed. So I don't want to belabor the point. I want to do what's best for our students and our staff and improve our facilities. And as far as I see it, this is a quick way, not a quick way. It's not been quick at all, actually. It's like we've looked at this, we're in compliance, we have the funding to do it. That's why we got the funding, and I would love to move forward with it. So, Trustee Swanson, did we get to you on this first round yet? Okay, then let's go to you, please.
No, and I think, you know, there's a follow-up agenda item right after this. That's an action item, ABM Building Solutions Construction Agreement. So it's not clear to me if my comment should come on this one or the next one, but since everyone else made their comments on this one, I'm going to contribute to that pool. So yeah, so I appreciate everyone's input here today. I appreciate ABM gentlemen being here. Mr. Finn, thank you. And anyone else online listening, thank you all. So, you know, as a trustee, I'm supposed to trust but verify, really. That's what it comes down to. So this, again, for me is not personal. This is about process. When I have enough background, rationale, data, information, public, making sure that everyone's voice has been heard, that's when I can make a decision on something. So I don't just say like, oh, well, I trust this one person and or this one entity. So obviously communication is needed. I agree with student trustee Deshni. Thank you so much for being in tune with the public on that. We're trusted with our community's kids, which is a huge level of stress and something I take really seriously, that we're trusted with our community's kids and we're trusted with our community's public money. So we just had our SARC report from the state that had a facilities portion on it. And on the facilities portion, it was like, oh, the facilities are good. Now we're hearing to what I think the public seers would feel like conflicting information, even though at that previous meeting, we did kind of clarify that the state's parameters of what are good, fit, or poor kind of vary from, they're kind of at the very, very base level. So we are trying to make sure that we are at least exceeding base level here. So if anyone has questions about that, I needed to say that out loud because I don't want the public to feel like we're speaking out of both sides of our mouth, depending on which item we want to pass. On one hand, our school facilities absolutely need repair. Absolutely need repair. I was just at my daughter's school this week. It was raining. The water was flooding off of the roof, no gutter to be found. It was creating a puddle, you know, digging out, the splashing everywhere. It's, you know, it's, the facilities are an embarrassment. And I'm not saying that to anyone personally. I know that, like Trustee McNary said, we inherited this, but I want to get it right now so that 10 years from now, people aren't going, what the hell was, what the heck was everyone doing? You know? So the process for me, we need to have a clear timeline. We need to have a contract that lines out what everything costs. This does not line out what everything costs. We have very generic terms. For example, PG high school electrical room. I don't know what percentage, I don't know what portion of $5.6 million is going to that. And I don't know if during the process, if we're going to get charged more or less for that. I have no idea. This is a quarter of our bonds money. Yes, it's a $30 million bond. But after bond fees, we end up with how much, Mr. Jordan, Trustee Jordan? How much in bond cash money do we have to spend out of $30 million?
Yeah, it's around just under 28 million.
Out of $30 million, we have a $30 million
Oh,
bond.
I'm sorry. Right now, there's 19 million left in the, sorry, rephrase the question for me.
Okay, so it's a $30 million bond, but after bond fees,
fees.
paying Dale Scott, paying maintenance, you know, to the bond, how much money are each of these 4 series going to roughly be?
Okay, so there is some staff associated with the bond measure and payment of staff. So, I mean, let me go with off the top of my head. So it depends on how many, we have 4 series, but it depends on how often we issue the series. So effectively $150,000 per series, right? So $600,000. And let's just say over the course of 4 years, that's $100,000 for the employee component. So that's $1 million in fees, 29 million out of 30 million.
We get to spend 29 million out of $30 million.
Correct.
Okay, that is different information that I've had previously, so I'm going to write it down and verify that later. Thank you. So many of the items also, because we have, it's going to sound dramatic, but let's just say we have crumbling schools, okay? We're saying we're going to go in and we're going to replace toilets with now low flow toilets, but the project doesn't include if the sewer lateral or anything else related to that needs repair. So we're going to have to repair that as well so that we can save water. We don't have clear goals set forth in the district that are we on a sustainability mission? I would be open to hearing that for a goal, but we haven't said anything about that. So when I hear that heaters are out and kids are cold, that keeps me up at night. But also I'm like, well, we're not really working on that. We're spending some of this money on weather stripping, door sweeps, and toilets. I haven't ever had a teacher, student, administrator, anybody say, you know, Carolyn, I really wish we had an upgrade in toilets right now. Our toilets, you know, I've heard that the toilets are backing up, but I'm guessing that replacing that with a low flow is actually not going to solve the backing up of the toilet issue. Part of this is having a gas-powered generator on the roof of the middle school. I think that we need to be very clear in communicating to our public why we are doing that. I appreciate Metin Sertuntra's point that we need to have a clear direction on what our fuel sources are going to be. You know, some things we're replacing with natural gas, some things we're replacing, making them electric. I just read in the Herald that we're considering installing a propane infrastructure for buses. This makes me scratch my head as a trustee. I want us to have, I'll wrap it up. I want us to have a master plan. Yes, it was Josh Jordan. It's in the Herald. So I want us to have a master plan so that we can go over and have clear direction on what we're going to do, have the public feel comfortable in the bid process so that we can move forward in a clear way. Thank you for bringing up solar, Trustee Hazen. Of course, you know, we know the state of California is essentially urging us away from certain fuels, and other fuels are going to become hopefully more consistent so that we don't have to have schools going out. But I don't see, you know, us approving this is somehow solving our infrastructure issues. So, Mr. Finn, thank you so much for coming. We've had an offer tonight to save us $560,000 on this, perhaps. I think we should explore all of our avenues, even though we don't have to go to bid. Let's not just do the minimum. Let's actually go to bid and figure these things out. Lastly, if we have an emergency at the high school electrical room, we need to move on that quickly and not be pressured that we need to approve this entire bulk of projects just to get one or two things that are urgent done. Also, there's a clerical error on the contract, page 35. It says Forest Grove and it should say Robert Town. Those are my comments. Thank you all.
All right, just so I'm sure where we are in this process now, we are actually on action discussion at number 8, right?
On A, right here, the resolution. I think we just ended up with all the discussion under that.
Okay, okay. I thought we'd moved on beyond.
We
Okay,
have to approve
all
it.
right, I see, all right, I see what we did now. I see. Okay, so that's board discussion now. We're going to open it up to further public comment on this public. All right, so do we have any additional public comment? Lewis, anybody online? We have nobody. Anyone else in the room that? Oh, we do have.
Have ordered? Are we supposed to? I thought for a hearing, we close the
No,
hearing
like
and then we open
opened
it up again with the next.
We closed it. We move into A, board discussion, public comment.
Right. So we have to close the hearing, then we have the
Yeah, all right, so
agreement. to
now
consider.
let's move to online, and then we have someone else in the room too. Lewis, if you want to bring him in, please.
Hi, thank you. It's Nadine Roldan again. After hearing some more comments, I just have a couple more comments that I just want to make real quick. You know, I think just hearing you guys speak, I know you guys all do a lot of work. I'm not trying to say you guys don't, but it just feels like this is just an easy way out, hiring one person and, you know, out of the state from New York and washing everyone's hands clean and having them do it all. And, you know, hearing that you guys don't have a clear cost and a clear breakdown of everything, that's kind of alarming. Again, it's public money. I see a big lawsuit that could happen. And, you know, like Ms. Carolyn Swanson said, you know, having just because of the low flow toilets is not going to prevent a sewer backup if there's, you know, sewer issue. That's not the case. And I agree with her. I mean, we should be, as a district, should be concerning more on the HVAC side and heater and all that than the toilets and the weather stripping. The first priority should be the heating system, the HVAC, and then everything else to follow. Again, I think you guys are just lumping it in one sum and just done, you know. And again, all these repairs and the way that the district and the school is right now with the repairs that needed, it didn't get there overnight. It took years and years and years. And again, I understand everyone kind of you know, it got handed it to you guys, and now it's not going to be fixed overnight. So I don't know. That's it. It's just really concerning spending all this money. And again, I know we need to spend it, and I'm not saying not to spend it, but it's the way that it's being spent. And sorry, I'm not a great public speaker. I have all these notes and I'm trying to go back in my head, but it's just really alarming spending this money. You know, like someone mentioned, you guys asked for, you know, more money, or if you go back to ask more money from the citizens and homeowners, the way that you guys are trying to spend it now, not you guys, but you know, how some of you guys want to spend it is just really alarming.
All right, thank you. Louis, anybody else online? We have one more, but let's go to the room first because we have someone in the room. If you want to come on up to the podium, make sure that the button is hit and it's green before you speak. You've got 3 minutes. There you go.
I'd like to see the report and prove to you that I can do this work, my company could do this work for between 500,000 and $1 million less than they can. And if you don't want to go at risk for the 35,000, I will.
Thank you. Louis, can we move now to our online contributor, please?
Actually here.
Oh, wow. It's a short drive in Pacific Grove.
So I listen. I need to put it somewhere. Green.
You're good.
Okay. I listen your comments. Thank you very much. I'm not mad at anybody. I agree with everything. We need to improve our schools. But still, you know, you guys, please pay $35,000 to these guys so I can see what's going on. So let's make a master plan and let's just move on faster. I mean, I have some idea. Like during the COVID, we were gonna fix those ventilation issues. I am still seeing that your staff is still working on that. I help the school district to not to spend the money. If we open the doors and then, you know, all these items, right? And then COVID is over. Now our kids are in the classrooms, HVAC, no ventilation, no filtration. And no, what do we do? And we are waiting for ABM to fix it. ABM is not fixing everything. They are saying that, I'm not against you guys, okay? Because their contract is based on a couple of schools. What about Robert Down? What about high school? Who's gonna fix those things? They are going every day to these schools. Like my son, well, anyway, everybody was sick. You know, I'm coaching, all the sports guys are sick. I mean, part of the reason is we didn't fix the ventilation and filtration. When are we gonna fix it? That was 4 years. I mean, really, we need to see the report. Why you guys are insisting not to see the report? I mean, why you guys, I mean, you shouldn't even sign a contract. Like I asked from CBO, can I see the report? And then his answer was, I cannot show you the report because I need to pay him $35,000, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Well, anyway, I honestly don't think that you should approve the contract. I'm not against you guys, okay? Let's see the report. Let's fix our school district. I think our kids are deserve better. I really believe in it. And then you are welcome to come back your price again. Offer us, we will maybe hire you. I mean, board will hire you. I cannot do anything of it. And I want to, just to be neutral, I'm a mechanical engineer. I don't want to be a designer because I want to be the controller for you guys. I know all these things, okay? There's very technical stuff here that I don't think you understand what they are talking about. Like all the pelicans and everything, you guys oversold us. That's the
I'm
simple,
sorry to
easy
interrupt,
stuff.
but we
Okay,
do need
I'm
to limit
done.
you to 3 minutes, so
All right,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Do we have any additional comments online, Louis? No, anybody else in the room? Okay, so we're still moving towards approval of resolution number 1118 or not. It's come back to any additional board discussion. Board members, do I have anybody you want to put your hand up if you have anything additional to say? Trustee Otmar, by all means.
I do have some questions. Is ABM available to answer those?
They are.
Okay.
Just a point of order, should we move through the resolution before, before we should get to the contract and then
Yeah, and
have
I'm
our
just
contract
going
related
by,
questions, answers? I know it's gotten kind of murky as
Yeah.
we've moved along, but
yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay, sure. All right, yeah, one's tied to the other. All right, so, all right, that's a good idea if everybody's okay with that. So let's take a look at resolution number 1118. And do we have a motion to move forward with approving 1118?
I'll move forward with resolution 1118.
I'll second that. Let's begin with our student representative.
Yes or no? No.
I'm sorry, that was a no? Okay, should we do a roll call on this? Can we just, or we can if we want, right? Let's do a roll call on this, please.
President Brian Swanson,
Aye.
Dr. Elliot Hazen,
Aye.
Trustee Jennifer McNary,
No.
Trustee Laura Otmar,
Yes.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
No.
All right, and that passes then 3-2. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and contributions and vote on this. And let's move on to item 8, which is action discussion, again, related to ABM Building Solutions. And I think we have some questions now. So let's begin with the board and back to Trustee Otmar because you had some questions.
Thank you. Did you want to come up to the, okay, just so everybody can hear answers and it's on record.
So this is Robert Lullamet from ABM Solutions.
Thanks for coming up.
Absolutely.
So I do have a question about contract completion of work. Do you have a completion date? Somebody said 15 years. I didn't see that anywhere in here.
No, so we have, what we've set is a maximum term during the contract. So we set a maximum term of 24 months to complete. Part of the reason for that is because one of the recommendations from council for the district was for the district to have what is known as final acceptance, right? So they'll conduct final walkthroughs. Everything has to be approved by district staff. And just given schedules, for example, if the HVAC units based on DSA timelines, inspection timelines, engineering timelines, if some of those units, for example, don't get installed until next summer, so not 24, but 25, right? And something happens, final acceptance in, let's say, September or October, and we're not able to get in and perform that heavy work until December break. So we have a maximum implementation timeline of 24 months.
Okay, and is there somebody that can point me to where that is in the contract?
Control structure.
And while that's happening, I do see on here where it discusses things that are not included in the scope of work. So for example, what trustee Swanson had brought up about slow flushing toilets. So I didn't see in here that if there's an issue with the main that needed to be cleared out, like a sewer main or a lateral that needed to be cleared, I see that modifications of waste or vent lines would not be covered, which makes sense, but I would assume that it would also include clearing of sewer laterals and mains if necessary, right?
And that actually is more for our
I mean,
engineer.
that seems like a basic plumbing.
An engineer,
type
an
issue,
engineer
but-
question for Todd and the,
Okay.
the question. So Todd was our lead development engineer, so.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. So if there were some common things that needed to be done, yes, that would be included, but typically in our contract, our scope covers anything we touch as part of our scope of work. If there's repair there that would need to be done, that would be covered. But things outside of that, down sewer lines downstream, things like that, that would not be covered as part of our agreement. That doesn't mean that we couldn't work with the district to get some of that work done or to clean out those sewer lines.
So for example, if there was a structural issue with a main or a sewer line or lateral, something like that, that would not be included in the,
That would be correct, unless
Repair,
it was
okay.
unless it was something we touched or we, obviously if in the process of doing our work, we damaged something, or obviously we would
Right.
take care of that.
okay. So if you replace the low flow toilets and they're not flushing properly, I would assume that as a company,
That
the
is-
basic thing to go, you guys would go in and make sure that they're functioning properly. So
is
if there's a
100%.
slow flush now and there's a slow flush later,
Absolutely.
the slow
Yeah.
flush would be taken care of.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's, and it would absolutely be our responsibility to make sure that what we install performs the way it's supposed to perform.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was seeing in this contract of things that were not included. So, I mean, modification, of course, you're not going to modify waste or vent lines. The other question I had was painting, patching, tile work, and wall repair. Outside of the scope of the footprint, that is just, if there's patching or painting or tile work that needed to happen based on something that you all did, you would take care of that.
Correct.
But if there needed to be some patching that was done that's not included in this contract, that's what the discussion is. That's what the exclusion
Correct.
is. Okay.
Yeah, an example of that would be, for example, Robert Down, where we have to add ducting, right? So we have to make sure that where we add ducting, we're not going to leave spot patches.
Right.
So Director Anderson's not going to have to come in and do a repair after you guys walk out because you're just doing it. Okay.
Correct.
And in addition, it's something that I do want to point out because it was comment that was brought in and it kind of applies to your question a little bit. But part of the advantages of the contract is that it is implemented with no change orders, right? So no change orders will be affecting this contract to complete the scope, right, as specified. Now, if there's something that wants to be added by the district as an addition later that comes up or an emergency that comes up, we'll do a change order, but it will not be a change order brought on by ABM to complete the work as we have specified.
Okay. I feel like I had one more and I lost it. So you might hear from me again. No, sorry.
While you guys are at the podium, I might ask a question or two also. On that, the point you just brought up about the change order is a great one. How many of your projects, like what percentage, if you could estimate, are there additional change orders that come about from the district? No, from the district.
From the district?
Like just in process, because I know it when I've torn open a wall in my house, right? You always find new stuff. So I'm just curious on that.
Yeah, it's actually fairly common.
Yeah.
And when we talk about change orders, not necessarily gigantic change orders, right? But yes, there's typically always something that comes up during the process of a project, even if it's, say, John was talking earlier about units going down. So in the course of us out here working on a project, other failures of equipment happen. Districts may ask us, can you step in and take care of those for us? And so things like that. So yeah, it's fairly common.
And typically because we already have a design that's in place and a plan that's in place and crews that have been deployed, it's a lot less expensive. And, I know that, pricing has come up. We have shared, pricing per school, through the district so that we can, make it available, but there's also, we have price check to make sure that it's competitive.
Right.
So
And-
we have looked at that.
And two other just quick questions. So the point I think was the 5.6 million has been brought up a number of times, but again, my understanding is that you guys are 100% agreeing to pay if those cost savings are not.
Yeah, if the energy savings are not generated,
Absolutely.
we would do one of two things. We would cut a check, or we would also provide in-kind services if the district so chose to do so.
Right. So we're not actually, for the net, we are not spending bond money on the overall scope of the project. I just want to make very clear on that. We're spending it to get the project started, but not basically, if cost is recovered, we still have that money to use in other areas. Or is that not the right way to view it?
Right, so
I mean, we're not saving the bond money, but we're saving the district that amount of money that can be used in other.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry to, not saying we're putting it back in the bond. That was not clear. I just wanted to ask too, there's been a lot brought up from other folks about, where they've done similar work. I'd love to hear. I know we've been presented before where ABM has worked with school districts, but even local school agencies here. Could you give us some examples?
We just signed a contract a couple months ago with Gilroy Unified School District right here, and we're conducting a $21 million HVAC mechanical improvement for Sequoia Unified.
Okay.
Where it actually looks like they are, so where they're actually looking to remove one of their existing electric contractors who are on site for $5 million of electrical work because they've received too many change orders and lumping them into our contract now. So we're in the process of adding that $5 million with Sequoia. And then we have process right now to get a third phase with South Lake Tahoe approved. Glendora, Lompoc for a second phase for solar, and those are just active projects right now.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, I'll just point out, this is, and I could be completely wrong on this, but weather stripping has been demonized a little bit, I'd say, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the building envelope versus the HVAC, because again, my understanding is securing the building envelope, you're wasting money and any HVAC upgrades.
So everything goes hand in hand. So the building envelope is very important, and it's actually one of the most commonly overlooked items. There's two folds to that, right? Building envelope, not only does it allow for air to come in, temperature issues, right? But also when you have mechanical equipment, if you have those gaps, that air coming in, it makes those mechanical units work much harder. So their useful life actually declines. So if you put in new units, and you have a lot of building envelope issues that aren't addressed, those typically will not perform as well as they should. It also makes it harder for the BMS to control because temperature is fluctuating based on climate and programming becomes harder. And I will address one other actually item that you brought up earlier, which is the solar and the battery. So when I met Mr. Jordan in February, one of the first things I said was, have you guys considered solar and batteries? And he stopped me right away and said, well, we're not at a point yet with our equipment, we're running efficiently enough to implement solar and battery. So what's happened throughout California specifically, and it's happened actually a little bit too much, and it's something frustrating personally for me, but a lot of people have implemented large solar systems, battery systems that are oversized because they haven't made their district efficient yet. So you're basing it on additional efficiency, right? So it's better always, because it'll save you money, obviously, in the long run by implementing a system that's actually suited to your future needs instead of what is necessary now. It's always better to make your district more efficient first and then implement a solar plan for that.
Right. And just to say, that was reconnecting to the point that I raised earlier, that this is getting us ready to save the money so that we can get a solar system that's more affordable to deal with.
Like
some of these
Mr.
things
Jordan
down the road.
said, I don't want to stand up and sell a silver bullet. It gets us a lot closer, right? There's a reason why, we were brought in to look at stuff, and we did develop up to close to $40 million of potential work that the district could do, right? Because of the state of the facilities. Solar was not really included even in that, right? So that doesn't include solar. That's just getting the deferred maintenance and everything handled so the district is in a good position with their facilities. And that's, again, adding a lot of ducting, adding ventilation, adding system. I mean, there's a lot to do, and that's just the truth. But it does get you a lot closer, a lot faster, right? Because at the end of the day, we've been in this process for almost exactly a year, because we met at CASH, and CASH is in 2 weeks. So we've been working on this for a year with the district and collaborating with the staff to help them get to this point. So it's already been a year of effort.
And we've approved multiple steps along the way in pursuing these processes. So that's just one point, just making on transparency. I do feel like we have had meetings where we've discussed with you what the scope would entail and what that would mean for the
Yeah, and I
district.
think so in the last one where we did the presentation from the NDA, we went through specific number of units per school per measure, right?
Thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things was talking about the change orders. I would assume that, from what trustee Swanson was saying too about the gutters and all that, I would assume that you'll probably uncover some water damage and some dry rot and possible termite. That's just a guess. Do you guys have, as far as the kind of the order of operations and what you're going to do things, do you start with envelope, then move to HVAC, then move to, like, sort of what's the order in which the process happens?
Yeah, so we would start with things like lighting. And you don't have a significant amount of lighting in this district because most of it's already LED, but there is some lighting. So we would start with things like lighting and envelope, because those, when we talk about lead times, those are items that have shorter lead times. We can get the materials quicker and get that stuff implemented first. HVAC has a longer lead time, so that's going to be something that, as Robert talked about, that may push out upwards of 18 months, 24 months. And then controls are typically the last thing we do, because you've got to have the HVAC replaced and installed, and then get the controls functional and do all your commissioning and testing and make sure everything functions properly.
Okay.
And water, I guess, water,
Water.
as a nose grow, that would be one of the early things we would do as well.
Okay, and then as far as determining which areas are going to be serviced first, is it going to be based on need, like these classrooms are cold or this building is deteriorating the most? Or, how is that getting figured?
So we've got, in this project, there, I guess the short answer is yes. And we would sit down at the beginning, meet with the staff and target and put a plan together. We want to address the needs. We also want to minimize or eliminate disruptions, right? And all of that. So we work very closely with the school district to build a plan of attack, so to speak, as to what we address first.
And then project would begin when, if this is approved tonight?
Well, we would begin as soon as possible, but when you say project begin, that there's mobilization, planning, subcontracting, there's a lot of things that go in. So we would start that right away.
That process begins
That-
immediately.
That begins
Okay.
immediately. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
would have an internal meeting and set a meeting with the district probably by next week at the.
Yeah.
like by
And
next
that
week
starts
every meeting.
that starts the 24-month.
Yeah,
clock.
the minute,
Correct.
the 24-month starts the minute you guys sign. the
So,
contract.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Just a point of clarity, the 24-month is in the scope of work component of the agreement. It's on page 87 in the contract.
That was very important to the staffing council, by the way.
Yeah, well, 24 months was important to staff and council, and then I have to go back and look at what page, but there's, the district wanted to bolster up the compensatory delay component, right? So liquidated damages are included in here. I know that they don't like hearing that language, but that's a protection for the school district if they don't meet the timeline. And that is on page, 93 under time to complete liquidated damages. That's a pretty extensive component that we went back and forth with ABM on, but again, it's to keep them on time and task.
Trustee Otmar, any other questions from you at this point? Fellow trustees, anybody else? Jump in.
Oh, go ahead.
Where is the assessment report? And why, I mean, that question's been raised now by the public. I think it's been raised by at least one of us as trustees. Is there an assessment report? Why don't we have access to it? It would really help me making an informed decision to have the information underlying
Me too.
this.
So my understanding is that the assessment report was provided to the staff and to the board. So we provided an assessment report. When we started with the MDA process of providing a report and providing an assessment report was not part of the scope that we were brought into. So when you look at the MDA, what we were requested to do essentially for the $35,000 fee was to help the district design a project that fit under 4217 to help achieve the infrastructure goals, right? So it was to conduct the preliminary studies, the engineering, in order to put forth a project that met those criteria. Because the community requested an assessment report, we put together something in kind that has more detail to make it available for administration and for the board. But just due to competitive nature, if we put something out, for example, something that was mentioned in the previous meetings, right? We incurred close to $250,000 over the past year to fully develop all this work, engineer all this work. If we were to put out an exact piece by piece full assessment report that we weren't contracted to do, it's very easy for somebody to come in today and say, I'll do it for $100,000 less when they haven't incurred the $250,000 of business that's come to this point. So because we weren't contracted to do a report, we provided an external report to the staff and the board to be distributed internally as much as possible. However, it wasn't part of what we were asked to do, and we actually did that as an in-kind service over and above the MDA.
Thank you. I think that answers my question about the assessment, but also doesn't answer my question about like, where is the assessment? Because I'm not sure that I've seen what you're referring to as a board member. I don't know.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we asked them to provide an assessment, we provided the board in one of the trustee response documents. It was a linked document and it was labeled confidential and it was for board member eyes only. I don't know which meeting that was from, but we definitely shared it with the trustees. It might have been a couple of months ago. It was a confidential report. And as the team just mentioned, I mean, I understand the competitive nature of these type of projects, right? So if they were to release their engineering documents and everything they prepared to get to a point where they could bring a project forward, and the board did, and we, the district, had that information, and we, the district, shared it with the public, and the board didn't approve their contract, the public would have that information, as he mentioned, and it's proprietary. So any engineer would then have those calculations, that information, and that makes it, I mean, I'm sure from their perspective, that gives them a disadvantage moving forward as a contractor.
That makes sense. I still feel like I'm at a disadvantage when I have it in just a lump sum without further breakdown. I don't think I have any further questions right now. What was that? Schedule A?
No, so I did share with the trustees a schedule of values. The schedule of values is something that's not an exhibit in the contract, but the schedule of values does delineate all of the scope of work per site broken down by discipline. So if it's electrical work, mechanical work, I mean, I just pulled it up and I was trying to look at it during the meeting here. So that also was prepared for the district. So if you'd like, I mean, I could project it. I can share it with the public. That's not a proprietary document. But so, so for Pacific Grove High School, I have it right here. I have the costs associated with LED lighting, building envelope modifications, electrical upgrades, water conservation measures, and so forth in their schedule of values, which is at the request of the district. Normally, the schedule of values accompanies a project schedule once we get past the agreement component, right? So, but we do have the information and I can share it freely.
Board, any other board member questions at this point? It looks like it. Or comments?
I'd just like to also ask, just more staff, because it seems like we're gonna get 3 votes on this tonight, about the LED lighting at the stadium. I think that's really important that we notify the neighbors about the impact and make sure that they know that that's coming. And, we've had both districts neighboring have some, really difficult times just installing lights. And I just want to keep our, good standing with our neighbors. We already have lights, but I guess they're going to be updated. And anyways, so if the stadium communication, that would be excellent. And then, I have more questions now than I did about the assessment. So the assessment that I'm asking for, is something that gives me something measurable. For example, and Trustee McNary mentioned it already, but I'm gonna ask again because I'm hoping you have something like this. So we're talking about air quality. Air quality was one of my biggest concerns, with COVID, but also long-term, right? We know that it increases academic scores, physical health, reduces absenteeism. There's a laundry list of benefits besides just, healthy air. It makes sense logically. So are you saying that there's for example, there's a classroom at Forest Grove, you're going to put in a new thermostat and a MERV 13, or are you going to put in a new HVAC unit?
You said Forest Grove, sorry.
Sure.
Sure. So yeah, so it's actually a little bit of everything. So it's thermostat, it's a completely new HVAC unit, but that HVAC unit is going to have an economizer to allow outside air in. The controls will also be upgraded so that outside air can be changed, monitored, and that's twofold because indoor air quality is a little bit tricky, as I'm sure you know, because you've done a lot of research on it. Right. But other than all the benefits, it can also cause harm, right? If there's fire days, if there's certain things happen, right? You don't want that fresh air. And so having the ability to control that is also very important for indoor air quality. So it'll allow it to do both. So it's not only, so it'll have mixing boxes for clean air, economizer control, and it'll be a full new unit.
And by the time this $5.6 million contract is over, every classroom in our district will have this, or only certain classrooms?
Only certain classrooms. So it'll have, so all of the units in Forest Grove, the K wing at Robert Down.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions? Can we go to our student rep? Any questions at this point? Comments, questions? Nothing additional? Okay, thank you. Public comment. I know this sounds or might even feel redundant, but we're actually at that point now. This item for action discussion, is there any additional public comment? Louis, anybody online? Seeing no one. Anyone in the room? 3, 2, 1, no one.
Oh,
All
no,
right.
we got one.
We got one?
Got one on each.
Oh, we do? We have one. All right. So let's go to the room first, since you're standing up. I think you're still, there you go.
All right, okay. Okay, we handle the Forest Grove. What about the other schools? What about high school? What is the middle school? What about the gyms? Where's the Robert Down? Robert Down doesn't have any ventilation. I look at the plans. There is none. No outside air. So when are we gonna fix those? Are we gonna wait another 2 years to pass another, or we will bring another? Maybe you will go to cash conference and meet somebody else again. And then is that the way we are gonna do it? Where is the plan? How are we gonna fix all these schools? We already have the COVID. We talk about the outside air and the filtration. And now we are not still providing that to other schools. And it's gonna take 2 years for Forest Grove to happen. I mean, I'm not saying that let's not do it. Let's do it, but let's upgrade all of them. And I think that this is gonna require more bond money. And let's make a sample project, present to the community. Let's go get some more money. But I'm not gonna be comfortable because you guys I cannot see. I asked for the assessment report. I didn't see the schedule of values. I spent my own time to figure it out. This doesn't have enough information for you guys to approve that contract. You already approved it. You did, but you have many questions. I have many questions. I hope you sleep better tonight, because we need to make these schools better. We live in a very wealthy neighborhood. East Salinas schools are better than our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have someone online still, Louis?
Hi, my name's Sonda. I just had a quick question about the guarantee of work. So if work is done and something is faulty after a certain amount of time, does the contract take care of that? In the past, we've had work done at the Robert Down site and things failed pretty quickly afterwards. So I'm just wondering about that.
Thank you. We do have to take that as a comment and not as a question. It is not a Q&A unless a board member, as we come back into, and before we jump into that, is there anybody else, Louis, online? There's nobody else online. I see nobody else in the room. Is there any board member that would
I
like
have that.
to?
I'd like to ask that same question.
Okay.
That's if there's a guarantee on work and how long that guarantee is and what it includes.
Sure, there's a 1-year guarantee on labor, right? That's the norm. And then it depends on the the equipment that's supplied, right? So there's manufacturer's warranty associated with every single piece of equipment that's being supplied to us. So I used the term submittals earlier, right? The district receives a submittal package for every single thing that's put in and installed in this district. And I'm not just talking about units. I mean, it literally is down to the screws that they use, the boxes they use for electrical, the wire they supply. All of those things are reviewed by the district. So the answer to that question is yes, there's a warranty, manufacturer's warranty on every single thing that's supplied, and 1 year on workmanship.
Okay, and so labor would be covered along with that for a year. Okay.
Terrific. And we worked through public comment on this, and we are back to board discussion. Any additional board discussion elements that we want to bring up? Student rep, anything you want to throw in here at this point?
I was wondering why was I just don't know, but why is Forest Grove what we're starting with also? Like, do they just need extra help with that more than the other schools right now? Or is it just because like it's hard to afford doing all of them right now, so it's just the one that's the priority to start with?
That's a great question. And the answer is both, more or less, right? So the oldest units in the district exist at Forest Grove. They're just the oldest units. They're the ones that are failing us. They're the ones that don't bring in much outside air, but effectively they're the oldest. The second part to that question is yes, it's because the scope of work is just too large to bring in right now. We've been hearing about the $40 million number, right? That was what ABM looked at if the district were to pursue all energy efficiency projects within the district at every single site. Now, there are some projects that are occurring in our district right now that are kind of piecemealed. Those projects are being done like one-off projects. The middle school, we put in a split system and in one of the portables, and an energy recovery ventilator is going to be going in next. Similarly, over at Robert Down, we've specified an energy recovery ventilator for the library. So there's other projects that are taking place in this district that are not part of this scope of work, but there's a holistic approach to get us to a point where every school site, especially on the mechanical side, have modernized mechanical systems and controls.
I want to jump in here on that point too, and I'm going to ask Director Anderson for a little help on this too, because as I recall, when we did our tour of Robert Down, one of the spots that we went through was the library. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you demonstrated and displayed what was happening within the library itself as it relates to air quality and air exchange. Can you elaborate?
So to elaborate on the library, so the library, the backside of the library used to be outdoors. And in 1956, they turned that into the indoor cafeteria. Thus, basically, the library became encapsulated, if you will. So that is the one part of Robert Down that has the least amount of ventilation. We do have air monitors in that area, and we do have the doors open for most of the day. And we've seen the air quality is substantially improved by doing that. But ideally, if we put a cover, the energy recovery ventilator in, that's going to bring filtered outdoor air in. And what that energy recovery unit does is it uses the indoor tempered air to temper the air from outdoors. So if air is coming in at say 58 degrees, it's going to move it up a couple of degrees. So we're not bringing direct cold air out, and also that air will be filtered. So that's what we've already completed the one at the middle school. So that's our first unit that we've replaced a failed BARD system and installed a split system heat pump with energy recovery unit, and the air quality in there is phenomenal, and we're seeing a much improved utility usage there. So ideally that's great for our systems that are in our buildings that are enclosed and have no opportunities or easy opportunities for outdoor air. So ABM will get us to the point with a lot of those things like the high school where we can later on our own going out to bid, we could use Measure D money to put more of those energy recovery ventilators in. So that'll get us there.
So would it be safe then to say that what we're talking about doing with ABM does not exist? It's not the only thing that we're doing. We're doing these other things in addition to what we're talking about doing with ABM. It's like we are
correct.
ABM is taking a big chunk of some of these things that need to be done, but we are not ignoring some of the other things that we can still do on our own. Is that correct?
Exactly. So The things that I'm taking out to bid are things like new fire alarms, the new roofs, the painting, the gutters, those structural things that I could easily write call for bids and go out to bid for publicly like we did this past summer. This whole energy package is an opportunity for us to use a different means to basically jumpstart what we need to do. It's great that we have engineers and people that are concerned, and I appreciate their concern. And I wish I had engineers like that on staff to help me every day to write multiple call for bids and to go out for this, and but that's just not realistic. So this is the best opportunity we have.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that too. So board, any additional comments, questions, by all means?
Something that just popped in my head also, if we wanted to prioritize something like, for example, like doing like the air filters around every school rather than just Forest Grove, would we be able to do that if we just cut down on some of the other things that might not be as like priorities right now that we could do in 2 years once we're done with this project, just so then like every school has that update and is able, because it seems like that's a big issue right now, like just students being able to breathe clean air and like getting sick less. So like, would that be possible also?
Yeah, so a component, as I mentioned earlier in the night, related to CalShape, you heard me mention CalShape. So what the district is going out for with CalShape specifically is targeting building management systems, but also the very first component that CalShape wants to pay for is filtration within the district. So ABM has asked for an inventory from our mains department on every single filter and filter size in this entire district, and the district plans to use the CalShape grant funding for that.
So is the are the ones for the other schools just going to happen after the 2 years? Or because I'm just sorry, I'm still confused why it just can't happen now with the Forest Grove. If like for example, maybe some of the toilets that we were talking about that needed fixing, like if we held on most of that and focused on the air filtration and then went over to that.
Yeah, so the way they package the project is energy conservation measures, right? So we're talking about everything from water conservation to energy conservation, both gas and electric. The size and scale of the mechanical systems that need to be installed at throughout the district at the various site, we're talking millions and millions of dollars versus, a couple $100,000. And when they're looking at the energy conservation measures, they can get a lot of savings associated with low flow toilets, right? Addressing those water issues. It's about economies of scale. So for $200,000 or $300,000 worth of toilet replacement, and I may be misquoting that, I'm not looking at the schedule of values right now, you get a lot of energy conservation out of that, as opposed to $1.6 million for mechanical systems. I mean, there's only so much money associated with this contract itself. So we tried to target kind of like the most impactful areas initially. I don't know if that answered your question.
Any additional board questions?
I'll just make, I guess, a quick comment more than anything, but I really do appreciate everyone's views on this. It's been really valuable to hear both the for and against on this item. So I really do want to say that. I also will say, I mean, Director Anderson's comments ring really true to me, that if this is the kind of work that's going to take 15 years without approving this, that's not something I'm willing to consider for my kids, the staff of the district, and our community as a whole. So I really appreciate the scope here and the concerns presented, that I hope we can keep moving with as this goes forward.
I want to echo that too. It's like, I think that, is lengthy of a discussion as it was, not just tonight, but over the last few months too. It's like, I think we have peeled the onion on this quite a bit, and I don't recall ever having as much student rep involvement and tremendous questions too. It's like, really, it's like, kudos to you for tremendous questions and helping us really to get into this too, and seeing that perspective, because I think it's very easy for us to see it from a different way. But you are really boots on the ground. You're just right in there every day, and so thank you for that. So, but I think we've run our course on comments here, so I'm going to look for a motion to approve action discussion Item A, ABM Building Solutions, construction agreement. I'm not seeing a motion. I will so
I-
move. Oh, no,
Have at it.
trustee Otmar, you got the first. I'll
Yeah, I
make
will
the
move.
second.
I will move to pass ABM Building Solutions LLC construction agreement, action discussion A.
I will take the second on that. Let's, all in favor, let's start with the student representative vote.
Yes.
And remaining trustees in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
All right, it passes 3-2 plus one in favor from our student representative, and we shall now move forward. Thank you, everyone, and everyone here and online too. I know that took a while, but I think that we gained a better understanding as to what we're doing. And for our representatives from ABM too for coming out here tonight and helping us through this. Thank you very much. Moving on now to action discussion. B, adoption of resolution number 1101 proclaiming March 2024 as Women's History Month. Dr. Adamson, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, President Swanson. It's my pleasure to bring this item forward this evening. We are recommending this evening that the Board of Education adopt resolution number 1101 proclaiming March 2024 as Women's History Month. And this is all as a means of recognizing women of every race, class, and ethnic background who have made significant and historic contributions to the growth and strength of our society in countries recorded and in both recorded and unrecorded ways. And as is typical when we bring a resolution forward, I always want to, ask if any of our trustees would be interested in reading it out loud for us. Do we have any takers this evening?
Any trustee or a student representative, would you be interested perhaps in reading the? Let's make sure your mic is on.
It's on page 168, JC, if you would like to. We would love that.
Find it, guys.
We'll hang.
No. It is long, I'll forewarn you.
Okay. Just like the whole thing?
It's the whole-
With the whereas?
Yeah.
Jay.
If you're willing, feel free to pass.
Okay, guys, I'll read. Pacific Grove Unified School District Resolution number 1101. Resolution proclaiming March 2024 as Women's History Month. Whereas the advocacy efforts of the National Women's History Project led to an annual observance of Women's History Month, which highlights the contributions of women to events in history and contemporary society and is celebrated during March in the United States. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made significant and historic contributions to the growth and strength of our society in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. Whereas the leadership of women in elected office, including the contributions of our own Board of Education trustees, serves as an example of community and civic engagement for girls and women in our city. Whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. Whereas despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, labor, business, and in study of history. And whereas the Pacific Grove Unified School District provides opportunities for students to learn about the contributions of women in history throughout our civics initiative. Whereas the Pacific Grove Unified School District has encouraged pathways for girls to pursue science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, STEAM careers, and the underrepresentation of women in non-traditional careers by supporting teachers through professional development. And whereas additional education is needed to increase the knowledge of all citizens relative to the contributions of women and opportunities for girls and women to develop their leadership skills and to eliminate bias in education and the workforce. Therefore, be it resolved that the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education honors the contributions that women have made throughout history and commit to support efforts to improve opportunities for girls and women.
Thank you so much. And this is a action discussion item. So Thank you for reading that. We do need to bring it to board discussion. Any additional board comments? Seeing none. All right, and going out to the public, anyone online or in public in the room? No. So back, I'm going to assume, oh, sorry. All right. Move too quickly.
Yes, this is Erica Chavez. I teach kindergarten at Robert Down. And I'm a parent of students in the district. And I want to say, while I'm in full of support of this resolution, I think it's important to note that district-wide, we study women of importance throughout the year and not just in March, as kind of in the past, maybe when I was growing up. So I just want to highlight the strides that we've made in diversifying the narrative and being more inclusive with our representation throughout the entire school year, not just in those special months that we highlighted, especially. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I could not agree more. I live in a house full of women. I'm gonna not say anything more because I'll probably say something stupid and diminish the importance of what we just did. So I don't see any other public comments. So can I get a motion to actually approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve March 2024 as Women's History Month.
I will second.
All right, I have a motion from trustee McNary and a second from trustee Otmar. Student advisory vote, please.
Yes.
And the remainder in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We are going to move on now to action discussion. Item C, PGTA PGUSD Memorandum of Understanding over Transfers and Assignments. Director Rogeman.
Good evening, trustees. Buck Rogeman, the Director of Curriculum and Special Projects, also the lead negotiator for PGUSD with our negotiations with the Pacific Grove Teachers Association. The memorandum of understanding that you have before you this evening would allow the district to advertise both internally and externally as soon as a vacancy becomes known and available in the district. Part of the reason why this is coming before you is because of the supplemental employee retirement program that was offered and the folks who took it. There's going to be a greater amount of hiring required this year because of the people who took the SERP. And so what this is going to do is it's going to help us expedite the process by which we are going to hire people while still protecting the rights of the employees who are currently employed in the district to be granted an interview for the positions that become available. I want to be very clear that the PGUSD employees are going to have the opportunity to interview for jobs first before the district would bring in outside candidates for a position that is opened. The way the contract currently reads is that the positions need to be resolved at the site level first. And then after they're resolved at the site level, then the district can advertise the positions district-wide and externally at that time. This is going to allow us to build a pool of qualified candidates so that once those positions are resolved at the site, we will already have gone through the paper screening process for several of the candidates, and we'll be able to bring people in a more expeditious manner to be able to interview for these jobs and keep building the incredible team that we have here at PGUSD.
Terrific. Thank you, Director Rogeman. I know we've all seen this before, so let's go right to the board. Board, any questions, comments, concerns? I'm seeing heads shaking all around. Okay, let's go out to the public. I'm seeing Lewis, nobody online and nobody in the room with stepping towards the podium. So let's bring it back again. And I just asked the board, so I think we're okay. Can I see a motion to approve this memorandum of understanding? Blah, blah, blah.
I'm happy to make that motion to approve the MOU.
I'm going to second then. I'm sorry. All right. Nope. Trustee Swanson gets a second. Motion from trustee Hazen. Student advisory vote.
Yes.
Okay, the remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you, Director Rogeman.
President Swanson, if I may, before I sit down, just once again, want to thank the PGTA. I know that I do this often, but I never take for granted the quality relationship that we built with our bargaining unit. And we look forward to coming to an agreement on several other language items and compensation in the coming weeks and months. Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on, action discussion. Item D, proposed board calendar, future meetings. Dr. Adamson.
Yes, thank you, President Swanson. So this is really just a routine item we bring forward just for us to look at the dates from August 2024 through December 2024. For all, I'm sorry, this is not routine. These are our future meeting dates. So we have proposed dates as we look at our calendar for the month of August through December of 2024. And really just going off our new, agreement in moving forward that we really are looking at for most months, one meeting a month with special board meetings identified on the second Thursday for many of the months. So really just wanted to put this in front of you to look at the dates and to have this discussion and see if we want to approve it or make changes as it stands.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Board, I trust we've all had a chance to take a quick look. Any concerns, issues, comments? Going around, including our student trust. All right. So, so knowing that, public comment, anyone online, Lewis? No one, anyone in the room? I'm seeing no one stepping up, and I'm going to assume no one's raised their hand online since. And assuming that nobody else on the board has had any additional thoughts in the last 30 seconds, can we get a motion to move forward to approve board calendar future meetings?
Also move.
I'm going to
Second.
second. I'm sorry. Is
I'll
that you,
take it.
Jen?
I'll second.
All right. We have
Sure.
a motion from trustee Otmar and a second from trustee McNary. Student advisory vote.
Yes.
All right. And the remainder of the board. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to information discussion. Item A, Administration, Cultural Proficiency and Bias Response Training, Director Rogaman. You're up.
Trustee
just
Brian, I
for-
think we had one more board calendar item.
I know it's
before moving
confusing,
on
right.
to the info
We have the
discussion.
two. So this next one, so item
Oh,
E.
what
we
did I
need to
miss? Did I
review
jump
that
from
one.
D to E?
We did D, we have not. yet
Oh, I'm
finished D.
sorry. It just.
And
I-
it's confusing. 'cause
Sorry.
They're
They look
two
very
together.
similar.
Yes, they.
So sorry,
Sorry.
Director
I'm
Rogan.
trying to
we're
keep us
almost
going.
there.
So that was, all right. So,
Mr. Rogan's on deck.
yeah, all right. You're ready, Buck. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Item E, board calendar, future meetings, past dates, June through 2024 is what we're looking at now. So again, Dr. Adamson, brief description.
So this is it, right? The one I was referring to, just looking at our remaining meetings for the school year through June. Are we good with the dates and any changes we wish to make?
Board, anything? Thumbs up all around. Public, Lewis, no one. Public, no one. Board, we're good. Can I get a motion, please?
Also move.
I'm happy to second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Otmar, a second from trustee Hazen. Student advisory.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. And now, information discussion. Director Rogaman, thank you, and sorry, everyone.
Good evening, members of the board. Buck Rogaman, once again, the Director of Curriculum and Special Projects. Also, one of the things that falls under my purview is the professional development that we do in the district. And what we are bringing forward to you this evening is the revised district administration, cultural proficiency training, and bias incident response training for site administrators and district management team. The whole intent of this training is to help us respond to incidents of bias and racism in a way that is culturally responsive, so that we respond properly by understanding with empathy the trauma that a target of racism or bias experiences as in our consideration of the response to those bias incidents. You will recall that the reason why this training was brought about was in response to the community feedback that asked for us to have that cultural proficiency aspect included in our training. That the public asked that we not just have the training with our legal team, but that we also have community partners that would be involved in the preparation work for the admin team as we move forward with the bias incident response training. So the model that we've set up would alternate training sessions, one of them with NCBI and the National Coalition Building Institute, as well as the Black Leaders and Allies Collaborative, followed by a training with our legal team. So the whole idea is to lay the groundwork, helping craft the mindset of the admin team to be more empathetic and more receptive and more understanding of what a target of bias and racism might be going through, to help us respond in a more appropriate fashion when an incident of bias occurs. So what follows is an outline of that training. There is a more detailed outline that I will share briefly. I'm not going to go through that entire outline, but it will be made available to the public. It was intended to be in the packet, but it was an oversight that it was not included. But I'll show you an example of the expanded training. This is just a view of the partners that are helping us and doing the training with that admin team. We've already had two of our sessions with NCBI and Black. I know that the board had the opportunity to experience the training, and then staff is going to have a similar opportunity to experience the training exercises and really the learning experiences that are going to be provided by NCBI and Black. That is going to take place on Monday, the 19th. And we're not looking at that as a single entity, but we will be following up with other training activities and trying to make part of how we do business the mindset that's going to be created in that training on the 19th. The other partner that we're working with is our attorneys for the district, Lozano Smith. And we are going to combine that diversity training expertise of NCBI and Black with the framework development work that we're going to do with Lozano Smith. When we're looking at the framework, this is a link. So on the PDF and the board packet, people, if they want to look at the framework that we're going to be working with, it's responding to bias incidents in middle and high schools that has been put out by the Anti-Defamation League. This is a pretty thorough toolkit that is going to provide great guidelines that are going to help us build that framework for the admin team that will then go out to the rest of our staff. When you're looking at the framework, the format of it really starts with that relevant diversity training that we're going to get from NCBI and Black, and then backed by the framework development that we're going to do with Lozano Smith. And then when we're talking about the components of the framework, we're going to have about 6 different areas that we're going to focus on that is going to give us a good, thorough framework for responding to incidents of bias. The first thing that we're going to look at is what we can do in terms of prevention and preparation. We feel that if we can do a good job in prevention and preparation, it's going to limit the number of bias incidents that we are responding to in our schools. Also, we're going to be looking at our school policy and our response protocols. One of the policies that is included in this current packet has to do with bullying. And so that's been recently updated, and that'll certainly be one of the policies that we'll be looking at when we're building those response protocols for our admin team and our staff in our schools. Then another aspect is going to be the reporting. We want to build a culture at each one of our schools where bias incidents are reported, and that is no easy task. There's no child that wants to be labeled as someone who tells on others. And so there's that cultural aspect of understanding that when you report incident of bias or racism, what you're really doing is standing up for someone, and you're not trying to get anybody in trouble. That what we want are people to feel comfortable and trust the adults on our campus. And I think a couple key aspects to people reporting is understanding that when they do report, something is going to happen. And through this framework building, we're going to have very clear expectations about what will happen when an incident of bias occurs. And currently, that's one of the things that's missing in our schools. As far as responding to incidents of bias, what we want to do is make sure that we respond in a way that's going to respect the confidentiality of everybody that is involved. Make sure that if consequences are warranted, that they happen. And then also see if there's any kind of a restorative path that can take place. We want that to be part of the program as well. And ultimately, want anyone that commits an act of bias or racism to learn from that so that we can grow past it and that person can not repeat the same action. Then another important aspect of this is going to be how we communicate about incidents of bias that occur in our schools. We want to make sure that we communicate in an effective fashion with our educational partners. And that for schools can be tricky because we do want to protect the confidentiality of people involved and the privacy that students and families are entitled to with regard to educational records. However, what we can communicate, we want to make sure that we do so clearly in ways that people understand that our schools are taking action and what that action is. And then finally, the education and healing aspect we alluded to a little bit earlier as we were talking, but we want to have lessons learned and then also have healing occur within our schools so that the path forward isn't just simply focused on punishment, but also on the counseling for those victims of bias and racism, and then also the education for the person that commits that act. And then finally, we want to assess and adjust as we go. That we want to be in a constant state of reviewing how we handle bias incidents, and if there's any adjustments to how we're handling them that need to be made, that we've got a system in place so that we can make those adjustments and can continually try to improve in how we're doing. We understand that this isn't going to be just a training that is going to fix everything, but what we're hoping is that this training is going to put into place the elements that are going to build a foundation for us in how we handle incidents of bias and how we respond to them, both from the point of view of the victim of those and the people who love the victim. That we want to make sure that we're doing right by the students in our district. And we think that this will be an important step toward that. I alluded a little bit earlier to the plan. And here's kind of an example of what the plan looks like. I know that's, it did not come across as my share. Oh, Lewis, what's that? Stop sharing and start. I will do that. We are all learning, right? There we go. So I realize that that's very small, but I just kind of wanted to read some of this to give people a taste of what we're looking to do. Session 3, it says the date is to be determined because we're planning these dates as we find out our administrator availability. But what we want to do is we want to lay the groundwork. So this is the work that NCBI and Black are going to do with our administrators before we take session 4 in reporting and responding. So we want to lay the groundwork for administrators to understand the conditions needed to maximize a person's willingness to report an incident of bias. Once an incident of bias occurs, what administrators need to understand when someone has been the target of bias or racism. Important elements of this response are pausing to reflect and identify with the trauma experienced in the moment of bias and racism. This plan to pause and reflect is intended to help the administrator empathize with the student, staff, or community member that has been affected. Really, what we want to do is take that opportunity and imagine that the victim of an incident of bias or racism is our own child, and then reflect on that and respond accordingly. So then, just to get a taste of kind of the expanded outline, and these bullet points are all taken from that Anti-Defamation League document that's going to be guiding our training. But when we're looking at something like reporting, the questions that we're going to be asking ourselves are you fostering a culture where students feel comfortable discussing bias incidents with school staff? Do students know what to do when an incident occurs? Are there trusted adults in the building to whom they can turn to for help? Do you have an easily accessible reporting mechanism? And we're hoping that we do now with the Sandy Hook Promise. Is your reporting mechanism safe, confidential, and anonymous? Schools must ensure that students who report incidents do not experience retaliation or an unnecessary interaction with law enforcement. Is the reporting system accessible to people with disabilities? Is it safe and comfortable for historically marginalized students, students who are immigrants, and students learning English as a second language, ensuring safety and inclusion for vulnerable students will encourage reporting? I'm not going to keep on reading, but what I wanted to point out is that this is the depth of the questions that we're going to be asking ourselves as we go to build the framework during that part that Lozano Smith is going to lead. And we're going to be doing it after sessions that cause for deep reflection and personal work so that we can build that framework through that mindset of how would you want the school to respond if it was your child. That's the pre-presentation that I have to try to really speak to the school board about our response to taking another run at this training after we've gathered the input of the community. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Director Rogeman. Board, anyone with an immediate comment or question, or just jump right in?
Just a quick one. I mean, I wanted to speak to the just quality of training and the real that we got from NCBI and Black at our special meeting. It was mentioned earlier in this as well, and it just shows that we're scratching the surface. So I really do look forward. I'm glad this is an information item, and I look forward to getting more from you guys as we proceed. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hazen.
And you've had two sessions?
Yes, that we had a first session, I want to say in January, and then we had our second session yesterday.
Who was in the sessions?
So that's the management team. So basically the district admin team was the people that were part of the training. Derek Williams with Black led a portion of it, and then Tori Mills and Elena Loomis with NCBI led the other portion of our training.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other remaining comments, board members? Trustee McNary, anything from you?
I appreciate that we're looking at this through a bit of a different lens. It kind of concerns me that it feels like it might be like one small piece of our very giant puzzle, and that there may be value in kind of exploring a more holistic approach to DEI work for our district. And maybe that means we find someone with expertise in this work, because we're all new here. We've never done it, but at least all of us on the board from now that we spend time together, we're new and we're just getting started. We're not the experts, we're board members. So I guess that would be kind of my suggestion, is I appreciate the work and the effort that has gone into this. And I think like at this time, I'm ready for more expertise and kind of a more comprehensive plan with regard to how we approach racism in our district and hate. So that's me.
Trustee McNary?
Yeah.
If I may, you mentioned how it's one part of a larger plan. at our March 7th meeting, we will be bringing forward that larger cultural proficiency implementation plan. And we made adjustments to that plan based on the community input meeting that we had. Well, now it's about a month ago. But, and so then the cultural proficiency teams made adjustments to the plan based on that feedback. And at that same meeting, they gave guidance to NCBI and Black with what they perceived as some of the needs for the training on the 19th. And so we've been trying to craft that training to meet the needs of our staff.
Yes, by all means.
I think it's really great to be training our administration and have everyone like on the same page and knowing how to deal with the events of racism. But I think also, and I think we kind of already do this, like teaching the students about racism and like kind of, but if I'm being honest, I feel like there's definitely a lot more we could do to talk about it. Maybe if we're able to like add, I don't know, like an example I can think of is like having an assembly where someone comes and like speaks to all the schools. But I feel like there just has to be a way to truly get like students on at least kind of the same page, because I feel like enough stuff happens like relating to racism where it kind of shows that more still needs to be done. And I just feel like also teaching students like truly like the consequences of their actions would really help, because I feel like a lot of stuff just gets away with, because I think this will help students to like feel more comfortable speaking out about it, but a lot of stuff just doesn't get said because people are scared. And then yeah.
Thank you.
I think you point out something that we've experienced in our training is you have to create a safe space to be able to have those conversations, and where people are going to be willing to take the risks to have the conversation. And I think that what's happening in our district now, and with gratitude to groups like NAACP, is it's been a call to action, and now is the time for us to have the kind of conversations that you're talking about. And so, it's absolutely just a first step. Yeah.
Trustee Carolyn.
Yeah, Buck, thank you for coming back to the board with an update like you said you would. I really appreciate that. I really like student trustee Dishni's question. Will you remind us in the cultural proficiency plan when students are folded into that?
So the cultural proficiency plan impacts students in a lot of different ways. I think it'll probably be better discussed in March 7th, but I think that probably the most immediate way is in the efforts to diversify the curriculum and to include multiple perspectives and multiple voices, and using the curriculum to be able to open up the kinds of discussions that she's talking about, right? That when you're reading a book that, when you're reading a book like Dear Martin, right? That book is what's going to open up the conversations and the opportunities for students to consider what those characters experienced in the book, so that all of our communities can understand the perspective that might be different or might be the same as their own. So that's one part of the cultural proficiency implementation plan. And I don't have it memorized.
Okay.
So it's harder for me to just off the top of my head give student specific examples. However, I know they're in there. One of the things that has been pretty resounding is the desire to form community groups at each schools that are made up of staff members, students, and parents to talk about the issues that are coming up at schools and possible solutions, and not only the issues, but what are the other kinds of learning experiences that we can build for our students. So that's one of the elements of feedback that we got when we went to the community to talk about our cultural proficiency implementation.
Okay, and so I'm hearing that like the book Dear Martin, which is already in some of our classes, but it's not in all of our classes, and it's not accessible to all of our students. Perhaps it sounds like you're looking at finding curriculum that would be accessible to a variety of students regardless of the class, but making it a part of a class so that every student experiences that type of curriculum. Is that right?
Trustee Carolyn, not only are every single adoption that we're doing now, we're looking through the lens of our multiple cultures represented in the curriculum that we're adopting. So we've talked about the ELA curriculum. One of the strengths of education, the one that our teachers are currently piloting with their students, is the diverse nature of the literature that our students are reading. It's way more representative of our diverse cultures than the curriculum that we currently have. So while Dear Martin is just one example, right, there are multiple examples throughout the district.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. I can come back. Mine are in writing it. They'll
No,
say.
I didn't really have too much. I was just like, this just makes me realize, like when I said before that we briefly talk about it, it makes me realize like I feel like the main place where I talked about it, I feel like in all my years in general with school, it's just an English class really. Because in English is where we read the books and the English teachers typically talk about it too and like explain. But other than that, I don't think I can recall really in other classes talking about it at all, or like outside of that either. I think it's great that we like recognize different cultures and stuff. We could probably do it more, but yeah, just talking about, or maybe even like giving students examples of things that are not okay to say. Cause I feel like sometimes you like people say things because maybe they heard it growing up or someone said it to them and they thought it was okay, but just because they were okay with that doesn't mean anyone else is gonna be. So it's like just emphasizing that.
What you're hearing is one of the main reasons why we are really emphasizing student voice in the LCAP this year. And I know that that's the next topic, but there's a lot of wisdom that we're going to gain from the most important people in our district, which is our students. And what you just, identified is that we need some training in that area, like teach our teachers of other subjects how to bring those discussions into class in an appropriate way. Yeah. Thank you.
My last question is, so we have a hate motivated behavior policy that exists, and it's pretty, it gives a definition of what hate motivated behavior is. And but the challenge that I found, and something that I just wanted to contribute to this conversation is, as a district, what I've seen is a lack of people being able or willing to say, yes, that was hate motivated. So instead it gets explained away as ignorance, or maybe maybe a second grader didn't know that the N-word was hate motivated. But then that second grader becomes an eighth grader and then a senior, and then we put him out into the world. And so, and that happens with staff members too. Staff, I hear of staff saying racist things. And then it's like, well, they meant well. So I hope that the hate motivated behavior policy that we have in place will be reviewed thoroughly during this process, and that we become more comfortable saying that was hate motivated. This policy is now going to be implemented. And I think that, to me, will help us go down this road of zero tolerance that we need to get to, in my opinion. Did you have something else? Because we would love hearing from you tonight. If you have one, I saw you like.
I just love that. I feel like that's so true. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like just calling it out when you see it. I know. Oh, sorry. I have it's just calling it out when you see it, and not like even teachers too, not holding back on like being like that was racist. Like you can't say that, rather than like sugarcoating it and being like that's okay. Like let's talk about it outside. Like I feel like other students should really hear like you can't say that either. Like if they see like a peer saying that and they're like they get talked to alone, like maybe that should be talked to in front of the people who heard it, so they know like if you say that like that's not okay. I don't know. I feel like I've just over my years here, I've heard stuff too, like said to like friends I know, and like a lot of people just don't feel comfortable saying anything because it feels like, oh, then their parents are going to get involved, then they have to like take time out of school to do this. and kids just want to live, you know? So it really just starts from the kids like being taught not to say that, because like kids are coming from all different places, like their parents are from different places. Like there's a lot of people who like I know my parents like came from like Russia, like a different place, and like for example, like things that people over there might think are okay to say like here are not okay at all. So it's like people just need to be taught that, and from elementary school. Because once you get into high school and you're so used to that, it's like now it's like kids like they won't stop so easily because they're kind of used to that and being told it's okay. So yeah.
Thank you. I wish you could stay all night. I know you have to go soon, so.
But I had a jolly time, guys.
Thank you so much, trustee. Those are all my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else, fellow board members? Thank you, Director Rogeman. I love how it's how broad-based it is, that we're talking about how all the different forms of biases that can occur, you know, and I think about, you know, and it's not all about my kids, but I've seen what two young women have experienced, you know, and not just being Asian kids, but just being young women, you know, and some of the frustrations that they came home sometimes from, you know, from robotics, where it's just like I was in back of the room the whole time, you know, or nobody called me on math, or I got called on in math all the time. Why do they always call on me? You know, all of those things. And it perpetuates, but we're talking about those things. And I think recognizing too that it occurs in so many ways. But we're addressing that, and we're talking about it, and we're talking about it on that student level too, which I think ultimately is where it boils down to us as a board. You know, I like to ask myself when I get home at the end of these meetings, it's like, what did we do for our kids tonight? And how did we make the world better for them? And that's what I want this to be about, is how do we make, what are we doing for our kids? And I think this is one of the things that's so important for us to do for our kids. So enough of from me about that. I think, but
I just, to echo what you're saying as well, but also, I think it's so important that we're making it age appropriate.
Mhm.
You know, Carolyn had talked about the the hate policy with a second grader. I mean, of course, the second grader is not going to understand what hate is. So it's about teaching at all levels. And I love what you're talking about too with, with Dear Martin, and even incorporating into history. Like we see history, when I was in high school, it was so one-sided. We only learned about, history from just this perspective. It was so narrow. And I just think it creates such a sense of community and cohesiveness and understanding and empathy, and the list goes on, just being connected to others through everyone else's experience. So I'm really happy this is happening. I know it's a piece of the puzzle, but this is where we're starting. And, eventually the puzzle is big and we look down at it and go, whoa, look what we did. And I'm really excited about this. I think it's great. And thanks for all the work you're putting in and all the work that everyone's putting in. I'm just glad to be here with everyone that's being so open and honest about it all.
I just wanted to pull a thread from what student trustee Daisy mentioned, in that, I do hope that, I will say by the end of this, but I hope that it's a lot earlier than that. We do as a district feel, and our students feel, that racism does have no home in PG. And that's something that I think will be painful at times, will be difficult for staff, students. We can't control what people bring to the classroom, but we can let people know, let students know, let staff know that, racism is not welcome on our campus. And so I did want to say, I would really encourage you in March to bring back more of the student voice when this does come back, just so we can kind of respond to that, since we are giving direction in here, not approving anything. But I really do appreciate, again, what's starting and what's happening here, because it needs to happen probably quicker than we can implement it. So thank you.
And I want to steal a quick a thought from what you started there too, Dr. Hazen, is that, yeah, we can't control always what they bring to the classroom, but we can control what they bring home to a degree. We can put something, we can send them home with something. And that's what you and your crew are doing. So thank you for that. So knowing all that too, let's open it up to any public comment on this particular item. I'm looking out to the room first, and looks like Dr. Hagquist, are you coming up? Right on.
I was going to save this announcement for the March, I think March 7th meeting. But the earlier the better, I think. And I wanted to respond to student trustee Dacey's comment about bringing speakers and such on board. Tonight, we approved a speaker, Dr. John Gaines, contract for a speaker. And Dr. John Gaines comes to us with a strong recommendation from one of our prior presenters from Top Youth Speakers, who was highly impactful. Dr. Gaines has been asked to focus on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion as a way to support the work that our site and district has been doing to help reduce incidences of bias and racism. The site leadership team has viewed Dr. Gaines's promotional videos and has expressed support for this activity. And just from Dr. Gaines's website, I'll just read a little bit. Drawing from his own life experiences, trauma, and unique challenges, Dr. Gaines connects with audiences on a deep level. With an approach rooted in positivity and unity, he tackles important issues with authenticity and enthusiasm, bringing people together and leaving a lasting impact. Recognized as one of Yahoo News's top 10 most influential people of 2020, Dr. Gaines possesses a rare ability to relate to his audiences and inspire them to imagine greater possibilities. So Dr. Gaines will be coming on March 15th for a student assembly to present to the students. And I've asked him to come for two presentations on that day, one in the daytime for the students, and then one in the evening for the parents or any parents who are interested. I'm thinking in the gym for the students, and then in the student union for the evening presentation. So just wanted to let everybody know that. And we're excited to have Dr. Gaines. I already talked to Dacey a little bit about how the leadership students can be involved in bringing speakers to the campus. And I let her know about this as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have, I believe, Erica Chavez online. And we'll wait a sec.
Nope, she's here.
Hello.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Director Rogaman and for the opportunity to be part of the cultural proficiency team. And I'm really excited that we're talking about looking at age appropriate ways to discuss such important topics with kids as early as kindergarten and TK. And I'm looking forward to expanding the potential to look at new curriculums, because currently we only have intermediate teachers piloting a new language arts curriculum that is more inclusive and representative of a diverse perspective. So I just wanted that noted moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chavez. Is there any additional public comment? By all means.
Good evening, Lyndon Tarver, President of NACP for Monterey County. Thank you for taking time to change the culture in PGUSD. It's been a long time coming. Dr. Adams, thank you for your leadership. With the 90 days you've been here, you've moved the needle in the right direction. Thank you for that. As far as the cultural proficiency training. It's good that you're going in that direction, but I don't think it's enough. Because once the training is complete, what do we sustain what we learn? Until PGUSD hire a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, they only answer to the superintendent. I think we're spinning our wheels in the mud. I reviewed the information that Mr. Rogerman sent me. But as far as the NACP is concerned in Monterey County, it's not enough. We would like to partner with PGUSD, but right now we're not there. Until we change the culture, change policies. You can't control what students bring to the school, but you can. If PG is going to be a zero tolerance for racism, start with changing the policies. That includes students, staff, and faculty. You have a table of penalty. When the student does something that's racist, you make an example out of it. Once you make an example out of the student, the staff, and the faculty, you have zero tolerance in, because they won't get the message. And that's what PGUSD needs, to change the policies, change the culture. If you're not doing that, then we're wasting our time. I look forward to the progress that PGUSD plan on bringing forward in the future. But right now, this is a good first step of many to go. This has been a long time coming. And we can never forget the reason why we're here. If Valerie Anthony wouldn't have came forward, will we be here today talking about this? Too often we sweep things under the rug and say it'll be okay. It won't be okay. Because the Anthony family has suffered trauma for years to come. We cannot partner with a school district that continues to have misconduct and misbehavior throughout the school district. I'm not talking about just niceties, I'm talking about crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Louis, do we have anybody else online at this moment? We have no one online. Anybody else in the room? Okay, this is information discussion. Board members, anything else to add to this particular topic or direction suggested?
I have a question. I think it's for Linda. So, when it comes to hiring a DEI officer, what do we do with that? How do we do that? How do we explore that? If the majority of the board wants to explore that, what are the next steps?
I mean, as with any hiring that we do, it really comes down to our, analysis of need. If it was something that, yes, the board was looking at it as had an interest in our pursuing, then it really would be a matter of looking at it would start with need and then an analysis of our budget and, funding that we have available, right, based on our current staffing. And that, as you know, right, that's complicated in the sense that it really, there's, overarching and far-reaching implications with that. So it really would just take a matter of our, a detailed study, but it would definitely start with the need, and it would start with having, direction, from the board of something that you would be interested in our pursuing, right? But again, that's not to say that would mean that, we would be able to do it. It really would be a matter of my coming back to you with information on, what that would entail. And so we would need the ability to be able to, bring forward a report with that and more time, right? It's not something I can really, give you at this time, but we can definitely look into it.
I'm wondering, for myself and maybe my fellow board members, or maybe they're already familiar, but I've heard varying definitions of DEI coordinators, DEI officers, inclusion office, there's all these different terms. But specifically like the job description, I've heard of an example of a job at a school where the person is in charge of relationships and it's their DEI coordinator, but they are focused on relationships with between staff members, between student and staff, between staff and family. Like it's pretty much whenever there's a situation where there's miscommunication, disagreement, all these things that we actually do experience quite often in our school district, even though we're small, we have it and we see it interpersonally amongst ourselves and further. And I could see a lot of value in having someone like that. They're almost like a counselor that can just help with relationships, but they have that expertise when it comes to racism and anti-racism. Anyway, so I'm wondering, instead of asking the majority of the board to agree to you to do a study at this time, would you be open to finding out perhaps more from Mr. Tarver on what his definition is, and then bring back a job description that you feel kind of fits that, just so we can start this conversation and explore it?
I mean, I definitely, Mr. Tarver, these are conversations I think, we have already started, and I absolutely would welcome, more time to, kind of get more information from what you're looking at there. And I think, yeah, and I know for sure we have districts, even neighboring districts, who have taken that step to hire similar and provide similar positions. So even just reaching out and learning more from them, as to the why, what led to that, and what results they've really, seen from that. What has the benefit been? And so I absolutely think it's worth exploring and just finding out more. Absolutely,
Just to
we could do
explore.
that.
Seeking, I'm like, at this point, I'm seeking to understand,
Sure,
more. about it.
absolutely. Yep.
But it would take the majority of the board willing to direct Linda to at least take that first step within that. So
Sure.
I would be in favor of you reaching out to Mr. Tarver, learning more, bringing back some sort of job description
Sure.
that's a rough estimate of what it would be.
Is there more?
Board?
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
I'm interested to see what other districts are doing and larger districts are doing. I'm interested in what districts are doing in the Bay Area, if that's happening there. And also surrounding districts. I don't know that I would give you direction to write up a job description, but I'm interested in seeing what other districts are doing.
I'd concur with that. I'd be interested to find out what other districts are doing, whether they have somebody who is fulfilling that position or has gone through some additional training towards a position that already exists. We're a small district, so
And I think that's what we do need to remember, being small and, what we have available as far as funding goes. But
yes, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I'm knowing again, keeping that in mind, it's that, we have limited funding and we're a smaller district, to know what other districts, whether they be small or large, how are they addressing it? I'm not ready to go to, I'd be interested in seeing their job description, but I'm not ready for us to write our own job description for it.
Yeah, and to clarify, I didn't mean for Linda to write our own.
No,
I
okay.
I was hoping she could find examples of existing job descriptions that met with what Mr. Tarver was requesting.
There you go.
I'd be interested as well to see what the effectiveness was of them
Sure.
hiring into that position.
absolutely.
And if they had seen a significant shift in dynamic within the district, reduced racism, reduced bias, sort of more collective community, if it was effective with a single position. There's a lot of sites here, so having a single position is possibly a stretch. So I don't know budgetary, as far as our budget goes, just having a single person in charge of DEI, I just don't know how that would fit the district, but I think looking into job descriptions would be, I think that's a nice idea.
Okay. Perfect.
Board members, I think, Dr. Adamson, you have enough
I
from
have
us?
direction. I do. Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
All right, and so I think we had our public comment and direction was given. I've had a request for us to take a little 5-minute break. And I want to keep it tight. So 5 minutes for bio break, anybody that needs one. And then we're going to come back. We may kick something to the curb here. And we'll but we'll deal with that when we get back in 5. Okay, let's keep it tight. Oh, I don't have to gavel back in, but I did anyway. Yeah. I love- all right, we're back after break. We are running long and we have a couple of big items here, so I'm going to propose that we move a couple of items to a future meeting with board support. Those would be information discussion F as it relates to TOSA, and also G, our quarterly facilities project updates. I want to make sure that everybody is, John and I have already talked about it to make sure everybody is okay. So do we actually need to make a motion on that? Should we? Let's make, all right, so I'm going to move that we move items F and G under information discussion to a future meeting. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, so all in favor. Have a good evening, Director Anderson. All right, now let's move back into the normal flow, and this is action discussion item B, our mid-year LCAP. Director Rogeman, you've got it.
I believe this is an information item.
What did I say?
Action discussion.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
Info.
that's fine.
Yes,
sorry.
sorry.
Don't want to tell you how to run the meeting, but
Well,
we're
you
probably
just
going to go
kinda
past
did.
10. You know what? We're probably going to go past 10. And so
Oh,
perhaps the
yes.
board would like to.
Let's do that too.
Yeah.
Great suggestion. Who would like to suggest a time that we roll to?
I'll propose to extend the meeting no later than 10:30.
I'll second that. We have a motion to extend to 10:30 and a second from me. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, we're moving to 10:30, no later. Let's wrap it up.
Thank you so much, President Swanson. The next item that it's my pleasure to report on is the mid-year local control and accountability plan update. And so okay. Once again, this is the local control and accountability plan mid-year update. And really the purpose of the plan is to give an update, is for us to adjust and then also inform. When we talk about update, what we want to do is to provide the public with an update on the implementation of the current local control and accountability plan. So the plan that we developed last spring was for this year. And so we're giving the public an update on the mid-year progress of the local control and accountability plan. The other thing that we want to do is that we want to adjust so we can plan for changes that might need to be made based on revised estimates of revenue, budgeted expenditures, and or student performance. And so those would be kind of key components of what we talk about here this evening. And then finally, we want this mid-year update to help inform the development of our subsequent local control and accountability plans. I think we've mentioned before that we're entering into a new 3-year phase of the local control and accountability plan. So this is a very important year for us with regard to the plan and kind of setting the course for the district over the next 3 years. The legal requirements is that we need to bring this update to the board by February 28th, and we are about 20 days under the deadline, so we are well on time for that. And then also what we need to do is give the mid-year outcome data. So any data that we have by this point in the year, we want to share with the public, and then also give a mid-year expenditure and implementation data. So you're going to see some budget information in the detailed packet. In the slides, you're going to notice I kind of rounded numbers just to give the public an idea of how much that we've spent. If the public wants to know exact figures, all of that is in the more detailed plan that is in the packet. Our first goal really has to deal with building a quality instructional program. This is where we want to have, you know, a safe learning environment for all of our students. And so when you're looking at the metrics, and part of it has to do with our teachers being properly assigned, students having standards aligned materials, that facilities inspection tool rating of good for our facilities and our teacher implementing state standards. We have 100% implementation of all those factors through the middle of the year. When we look at the dashboard data, this is a live link to the dashboard and we can go there, but there are going to be some bright spots and there's going to be some areas for us to focus on. One of the bright spots that we had was a 76% advanced placement pass rate of 3 or higher for our students who took the AP tests. That's a fantastic number. I mean, that's really a powerfully high number for our students that are in those AP classes. Also, our ELA and mathematics ratings are rated in the green on the dashboard. Let's see if this will link straight to it, and it does. So when you look at the state dashboard, it gives it different categories, and those things that are in the green or blue is really where the district would hope to be. When we see yellow, orange, or red, those are areas that we want to focus on. So those areas that show good progress for us are like the English learner progress. The suspension rate is in green, meaning that it's very low, right? Green doesn't mean a high suspension rate. Green means that we have a low suspension rate. The English language arts and math, and also the college and career is rated as high, but we have some things to look at there, right? And we'll get to that in future slides. And those were the things that were kind of identified as the bright spots for us. So when we look at some of the areas where we want to focus, I think the first thing that stands out the most is our CalPADS information showed a 41.7% A through G qualification rate for our students, and that was a drop from 67% the year before. When we saw this and had our parent ed advisory group meeting, this was identified as one of the things that was of the most concern for our parents at that meeting. So what we've done is we've tasked one of our teachers on special assignment, Isaac Rubin at the high school, to go through the class of 2023 student by student and identify those areas where students didn't meet those A through G requirements, so we could get some idea of what are the next steps that we would want to take. And I really have to give a ton of credit to Isaac Rubin. He's the right person for the job because he loves data, and he did an in-depth analysis of the data that we have. What we found is that when we reported the data, we pulled it straight from Synergy, and some of the filters in Synergy didn't identify some of our students who had actually completed the A through G requirements. So that number of 41.7 is artificially low. So Director Binder has been in contact with Sacramento to see if we can upload corrected information that's going to more accurately reflect the A through G. It still needs to improve. So this isn't to just discount the A through G rating, but based on Isaac's information, it's going to come in closer to 61.7%. So what happens is there's a validation method for students to be able to meet A through G requirements. And I don't want to put people to sleep, but basically what it means is that if you failed a semester of IM1 or I'm blanking on IM. And that if you fail a semester of integrated math 1, but you get a C in integrated math 2, that C in integrated math 2 qualifies you as having passed two years of math. Same thing with a world language. If you pass Spanish 2, then for A through G requirements, even if you failed a semester of Spanish 1, it still validates your qualification because you passed the higher level. So that was some of the data that got missed as we were going to upload. When we looked at where students didn't meet the A through G requirements, it was pretty evenly distributed across really 4 subject areas. The 3 that were the highest were social studies, math, and English. And that number fell in kind of like the high 20s and low 30s for students that didn't complete the A through G requirements there. And then the other one was the world language. It was about 21 students that didn't meet the requirements there. So that's going to be an area of focus for us, looking at ways that we can, improve, first of all, the way we monitor A through G completion. Director Binder is in contact with Palm Springs that has built into their Synergy and an analytics system the ability to flag students when they are falling short of A through G, beginning with the completion of the first semester of their freshman year. So he is looking to see if it's something that Synergy can transport and we would be able to use, or if it's something that's more complicated to build out for our district. But first of all, I think that we need to look at ways to monitor. I think the second thing that we want to do is look at the graduation requirements that we have for our students and seeing if we can align those a little more closely with A through G, if that would have the ability to bring that completion rate up. And then also look at, currently those classes that are the most difficult for students to pass and see if there's any kind of support that we can get for students in those classes so that we can avoid the DNF list. One of the actions that we have built into the LCAP currently is an A through G credit recovery class, and that class has been successful in helping students make up classes that they had previously failed with A through G requirements. Another area of focus for us is going to be chronic absenteeism. Currently, the rate is at 15, or with the current data that we had a chronic absenteeism rate of 15.8%. That marks a 3.3% drop from the previous year. So that's the direction that we want to go. However, it's still high enough that it puts us in a rating other than green or blue. So we want to do better there. Then the other rating that we have is 85.7% for the graduation rate, which represents a 7.7% drop from the previous year. That is a 4-year cohort graduation rate. And part of the reason why our numbers dropped is because this counts students that move out of your district against you if we don't have a record of them graduating from a California school. So our families that are in the military that move to another state, their state student identification record doesn't show up. And so that gets counted against the graduation rate. It doesn't feel like a very fair way to calculate the rate. If you look at our seniors of the class of 2023, we only had one student drop out or one student who didn't graduate. So that graduation rate is a little bit misleading in terms of where we fall on the dashboard and the dashboard data. If we looked at the 1-year cohort rate, then our graduation rate is 93.7%. And the reason why it's not 99% is because we do have some students that weren't on a diploma track, but were on a certificate of completion track, and those students also count against the graduation rate. The next thing that we're looking at are the expenditures through December 2023 for goal 1. And so we had 12.7 million out of 28.3 million spent. And of that 12.7 million, 11.6 million were salaries for the certificated, classified, and administrative staff. As far the next largest chunk of money was spent on our instructional materials in the first half of the year. That came out to about $800,000. And then our technology infrastructure also came out to about $346,000. And that is largely Measure A spending. When we look at goal 2, we're looking at social, emotional, and mental health of our school community. One of the metrics that we have is just how many students are in special education. This year, we have 271 students that are on IEPs in the district. And then our school attendance rate is another one of the metrics that we use. And we have an increase of 1 to 2% across the district through December above where we ended last year. So we're hoping that we can sustain that higher attendance rate throughout the entire year across the board. When you look at the elementary California Healthy Kids Survey data. We came in at about 74% that feel connected with their school. That represented about a 2% drop in our numbers for the fifth grade students who took this survey. And then we also had about 74%, which marked a 3% drop of students feeling safe at school. So all of the work that we're doing around cultural proficiency and building the framework is going to be intended to build a deeper connection of students with their school and to help the students feel safer at their school. I think we found the value of our student voice with the student groups that we had, because we have a little bit of insight from our secondary students when we look at the California Healthy Kids Survey data. We saw that 58%, or a plus 7% increase from last year, of our secondary students feel connected with their school. When we had our student focus group with the middle school students, they spoke eloquently about what made them feel connected to the school, and what they identified was the advisory period that they have. That advisory period is where they do kind of the character lessons that the students have, and it's also where some of the cultural proficiency lessons have been taught to our students. You might remember Principal Roach talking about the impact versus intent lesson that they did with their students, and one of the students specifically spoke to a lesson that the school taught their students about how to make our students with disabilities feel more welcome and more included in the school. That was one of the, that wasn't prompted by me. It was just the student remembered that as having an impact, and one of those things that made that student feel connected with their school. When we talked to the high school students, things that I thought the kids thought were corny now or no longer cared about turned out not to be true. That our high school students said that they feel connected when they go to things like the assemblies that they have. They love the break from the routine. So Dr. Hagquist, when he talks about bringing the guest speaker to the school, I think that's going to be very well received by the students. And it makes sense, right? The power of a congregation, of everybody gathering together at one time, is a powerful moment in a school if it's handled right. And what the students said that they loved was that a lot of the assemblies are driven by the students, they're run by the students, and they feature the talents of the students, right? So you have the band that gets to play, the dance team will perform, the cheer team will. Then you'll do something like the student voices, where there'll be poetry out loud that gets read. And it's really a celebration of the skills that the students have. Another thing that made the students feel connected to the school, I'm kind of getting chills as I talk about this, because they're the powerful programs that we have. You might remember that Mr. Kelly's art students have put murals around the school, and there are the decorative poles that are in front of the library. Students that were part of those activities feel more connected to the school because of that. So I think the message to the high school administration is keep having those kinds of activities, and that level of connection to the school is going to be even greater. 64% of the students said that they feel less safe at school, which is a 2% decline from the previous year. It was interesting because the number of students who felt safe at school actually increased with our 9th and 11th graders. It decreased with our 7th graders. And this speaks to the power that one incident can play in the reflection in this survey, because the feedback that the middle school students gave was that they didn't feel safe at school because someone was able to come onto the campus and enter the hallway. And so the steps that we've taken to lock the exterior doors of the middle school, the students responded positively to, but it just goes to show that when you talk about the safety of the school, the kids do notice. And the kids do notice when we take actions to keep them safer, but they also notice when we don't. So I think that's the power of a survey, kind of like the California Healthy Kids Survey. But what makes it powerful even more is to sit down and talk with the students, so that we're not sitting there guessing at the reason why they responded the way that they did, but we have a good idea of why. Okay, so some of the other metrics for the data that we're going to expect in June are going to be the high school and middle school dropout rates, the pupil suspension and expulsion rates, which for the previous year were low, And then the chronic absenteeism rate, which as we mentioned from the previous year, were higher than we'd like. When you look at the expenditures for this goal, we've spent $556,000 of the $1.2 million that we have budgeted. Counselors and mental health therapists accounted for $535,000 of that, and not a penny of that money has been wasted, I promise you. In terms of the cultural proficiency work that we've done, about $10,000 of that has been spent this year. Goal 3 is specified student groups will show a measurable increase in ELA and math. The mid-year MAP testing results for grades that are not taking the CASP test are one of the things that we've used to measure our growth. And the mid-year results show the grade levels improving from the spring 2023 scores. So that was a positive sign. And when you look at the data in the big packet, if you want to look at the cohort, follow them in a downward diagonal pattern. That's the best way that you'll be able to tell the growth that our students are making on those MAP tests. The data that we expect in June of 2024 are going to be those students that meet or exceed the CASP, ELA, and math standards. Also, we're going to get our results from the California All Alternative Assessment. And then we're going to see how many of our EL students made progress as defined by the state. And we'll also be able to look at our EL classification rate. And then finally, through December 2023 for goal 3, $574,000 of $1.25 million has been spent. For elementary intervention and support, that total is $325,000. And for secondary intervention and support, that's $245,000. And so then our next steps is that we're going to develop the LCAP for the next 3 years. I think really the biggest difference in how we're going to build this LCAP is there's going to be more extensive community input for the LCAP, and that's just going to be a practice that we're going to develop. You know, it's a lot of work to set up the meetings, but they're fun. You know, they really are. It's fun to get the feedback from the people who we serve, and every single meeting yields thoughts and ideas that are going to impact the work that we do. As I mentioned, we already had our first LCAP parent ed advisory group meeting. We had a student group meeting at the high school and a student group meeting at the middle school. Our first community input meeting is scheduled for February 28th. It's going to be different this year too, that we're going to be spending out. That's a Freudian slip, but we're going to send out a student, staff, and community surveys this year too, so that we'll have kind of that small focus group, the motivated people who are going to come to these meetings kind of input. And then we're also going to get the input of people that are more comfortable giving us input through a survey. The topic of our next parent advisory group meeting is going to be to look at sample questions for the survey and identify which ones we want to use for our students, for our staff, and for our community members, so that LCAP parent advisory group is actually going to get to help us build the surveys that we send out. And so that kind of tells you the next steps, where like how many goals that we're going to have that's going to get determined by the LCAP group. But one that I'm going to advocate for is that the cultural proficiency work that we do that's currently embedded in goal 2 gets separated and it becomes its own goal. One of the things that President Tarver talked about was the importance of sustainability. And if we can make cultural proficiency its own goal, then it remains a priority of the district in a systemic way for the next 3 years. And so I want to make sure that the trustees have time to comment. So I'm going to conclude my summary of the mid-year LCAP update there.
Terrific. Thank you, Director Rogeman.
Thank you very much
Doctor.
for the,
Well, you know,
for the diploma.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Trustees, just jump in. Anybody with thoughts, comments?
I'll go just on a quick one. I really appreciated your quick dig in, like the quick response rate to the A to G numbers, because that was obviously something that was concerning to a number of us, and it's good to see where that is coming from. You know, one question I had is there a way to figure out whether these were students that were deciding not to meet them, that wanted to, or whether it was just a issue of, you know, ignorance, not knowing the need for the A to G?
I'm not sure.
Right.
And so that's one thing that we can look into. I think that the work that Mr. Rubin did that identified courses where students were deficient is very valuable. And we need to dig a little bit deeper into that. And of course, I've tasked him with looking at the class of 2024 and see what those numbers look like they may be going forward. I also want to tip my hat to the counseling department at the high school, because I know that Kristen Paris does a lot of work emphasizing the A through G in the meetings that she has with students. How much of it sinks in, I'm not sure.
We've got 12 minutes remaining. Board members, anybody else want to jump in on anything? Thoughts, interjections, comments?
I really appreciate the approach you all are taking this time around, and how much more involvement we are having with the community, and how much more of a collaborative process we're trying to make this between the surveys and the feedbacks and just the multiple attempts to gather input. It seems like a huge improvement over past LCAPs, and I really think that information will help drive where we're going. So thank you both for working on that. I'll be interested to see the new data that comes out with regard to dropout rates and suspension, expulsion, and chronic absenteeism, and who those students are that we're losing to dropout or to suspension or expulsion, and kind of the breakdown of who they are for us. And also what chronic absenteeism means for us, like who are those kids and what are those factors that are contributing to them not making it to school, and what resources or supports do they need so we can better support them. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other trustee comments?
I was wondering, if you could do a deep dive like you did so quickly for the A through G information on why, students are chronically absent.
I think we can. The A through G was a group of about 150 students. And so the chronic absenteeism is going to be a
Yeah.
district-wide search that we'll have to look into. However, the value of being in a small district is if we go school by school, right? 17% of one school isn't a huge number. So we can, but it's going to take some time.
I see a lot of value in it because I was reading about how, sorry, it's late. How chronic absenteeism, a lot of times we can assume that it's from illness, but in reality, it's a lot of times from socioeconomically, being essentially poverty, lack of transportation, areas where our district typically doesn't really shine a light and put a lot of support, even though I think we could. And I think we have an amazing food service group who's willing to, feed people when we have outages. We have amazing special ed department. We have HR. We have so many resources. So for me, I'm really curious about those chronically absentee kids.
We will look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Trustees, anyone else?
Thank you for that information. I'd be interested in that as well. I think that that would be something to look into, because I mean, my hunch would be, of course, that a lot of it would be at the high school level, maybe just not quite making it to class, but I wouldn't want to just make that assumption. And then there is a cohort of kids that can't get here or don't have the ability to get here for one reason or the other. I wondered as well, with some of the numbers, do you feel like there's still some residual from COVID that is just shaking itself out?
Well, I certainly think that some of the chronic absenteeism is still related to the fact that there was an extended period of time where people did not go to school. And so I also think that, well, so we're all kind of giving a hypothesis now. I think that one that can't be overlooked too is depression.
That's
You know,
kind of where I'm
that
going with,
sometimes
yeah.
it's just hard for students to drag themselves out and motivate themselves to go to school. And so that's points out the importance of the mental health of the therapists that we have. And really the quality of the relationships that the adults on our school campuses can form with the children. Sometimes that can be enough to help a student come to school.
Well, and I'm thinking not even with the chronic absenteeism, but also with grades, not passing classes, not putting the effort in. I mean, if you're depressed, you don't want to crack a book, right? You sort of have to prioritize where your energy is going to go. And sometimes that is just dragging yourself actually getting into school. Or so I wonder if kind of the residual effect of COVID, of you being isolated, losing friendships, things shifting and changing and all that, maybe, you know, the numbers, I'm curious to see if the numbers will shift as, you know, hopefully the recovery from the traumatic recovery from COVID, you know, we recover from that.
Sure. Well, and I think that if you dread the future, it's hard to do good things to improve your future, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
but
It's just a sort of an interesting
Yeah.
take on it, or, you know, just a piece possibly of the puzzle of,
For sure.
you know. Anyway, that's it. But thank you so much for this. And I agree, Jen, with what you were saying. This is the amount of input that we're getting now is just, it's so vital. And I think it's going to make such a huge difference. So this is awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, and I have nothing additional to add. All questions that I would have asked have been asked and answered. Louis, we have anybody online? The question, go to public comment, nothing. Anybody in the room? Okay, so this was, again, as I was told, information discussion, not action. So we got like 5 minutes left and we're going to blow right into, thank you so much, Director Rogeman, to board policy updates. I think we've all had a chance to take a quick look and there were not any real huge changes. So board, anything anybody wants to call out or comment on as we're ticking away?
Just quickly, I really appreciated the way it was laid out. So thank you very much for putting it together and thank you for the work put in policy committee.
Anybody else?
Just for, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to echo what Dr. Hazen said. I know it's no easy task plowing through all that stuff. It is not. So thank you for doing it.
Especially thank you to the staff, right? Because like trustees are gonna have to read it regardless. So like being on the committee, McNary and I, we read it, but you guys end up reading it too. But just for transparency's sake, I just wanted to say out loud, and Linda, I'll follow up with you more at our one-on-one, but our policy committee, it was really cool to hear the staff talk about how much value they saw in it and keeping policies kind of top of mind and discussing the new updates. And so I've reached out to the district that we were kind of see as kind of like the star when it comes to policy updates. And there were some community members who had confusion about how the policies get adopted, how often they can come back. They thought maybe they had missed their opportunity to talk about homework policy, like all kinds of things. And I realized that there might be an opportunity for us to do better communicating, like the policy committee, how it meets, when it meets. I would love to start including the student trustee. So another district, they include the student trustee.
Love that.
So I'll just follow up with you more at the
I can't wait to
one-on-one,
talk
but I
more about
just
that.
wanted the whole board to hear that I'm going to be talking to Linda more about like policy committee 2.0.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
Anybody else? All right. And did we already do public comment on policy? No, we didn't. Nobody's online. All right. So moving forward, again, information discussion. So, Josh, you got a 2.5 minute version.
Just as far as the policy update goes, can we direct staff to bring it back on consent for board approval?
I'm
before we
down.
Move on.
Everybody okay with that?
Okay.
Nods.
Yes.
Okay, nods
Aye.
all around.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Consent it'll be.
Sure.
That's great.
Go for it, Josh.
All right. So you have a pretty extensive cover sheet, right? So let me just hit the K-12 highlights really quick on the governor's budget. So the governor's budget came out. I'm going to give you the quick highlights. Of course, we're looking for a May revision. I'll bring back another update to the board in the May revision. Okay, some of the highlights for this for us. 0.76 COLA cost of living. Of course, no mention of basic aid LEAs in that. But how the COLA affects our district is the COLAs are applied to categorical funded programs. So we have many of those, like the ELOP is ELOP. Everyone's familiar with that. So a lot of the categorically funded programs, which I have down below, did not receive a COLA. Some did, some did not. Universal Meals did. That's big for our district. Expansion to transitional kindergarten. So no additional budget consideration for community funded districts. There's talk about the 10-to-1 ratio implementation by 25-26 with the TK 4-year-olds in the classrooms. And again, no facility expansion considerations in the budget. Let's see, proposed ELOP ongoing funding. That's one that's very important to this district. It funds our BASRP program and our summer camp program. No COLA, as I mentioned. Proposed CTIG ongoing funding, that's great, 300 million, but again, no COLA attached to that. So what does that really mean, right? If we're funding positions associated with this resource, we don't have a COLA associated with that. So if there is a negotiated settlement, which there will be with our bargaining units, that's a direct encroachment on the general fund in lieu of the restricted resource for those revenues come from. Increase in funding on universal meals, that's huge. I mentioned that with a COLA. So there is a COLA to that, right? 0.76, it's massive. 500 million on-time funding, one-time funding for the school bus program. We all know, we've been talking about that already. You can see STRS and PERS. STRS still at 19.1%. That's fully funded, and a proposed increase to PERS. We're approaching 30% in PERS. It's something to note. I'm down to 1 minute here. So there's a bigger discussion about revenues last year coming in very, very low in the Prop 98 guarantee. I don't have time to get into that right now tonight. But there are some suggestions from the legislature on how they're going to repair the Prop 98 guarantee deficit with unrealized revenues. And I will bring most of this back after I have the governor's May revision. It's as fast as I can do it.
Right. Well, we don't really have time to jump into budget development calendar or future agenda items because I just ran out the clock. And so those items we're going to bring back after the Super Bowl. We can form a pool if anybody wants to gather after this meeting. And with that, I'm going to call this meeting to a close. Thank you, everyone. Let's go home.